Chapter 633. As the nine-colored pillar of light continued to rotate, the destructive aura it emitted terrified all the powerhouses. Phew, luckily, I still have the super-dimensional teleportation talent. The Sovereign's descent talent almost raised the power of the Nine Calamities star by several levels. It's not something I can escape from with my movement technique. Even Lin Chen felt a lingering fear in his heart. The energy explosion lasted for a quarter of an hour before it dissipated from the world. All the powerhouses looked at the center of the nine-colored pillar of light, which was still in shock. There was a bottomless abyss in the center. Bang, bang, bang. Faint energy from the Earth's core shot out from the ground. Lava burst into streams of fire, and an earth-shattering crater appeared in front of everyone's eyes. It made their hearts tremble. There was no end in sight. The crater seemed to have been hit by some apocalyptic disaster. It penetrated the ground, and even some of the Earth's core's energy leaked out. If he were to use his battle chi to explore the vast crater, he estimated that it would be over 800,000 miles, or even more. Countless powerhouses felt their scalps tingle. When they looked at Lin Chen's eyes, it was as if they were looking at the most terrifying and powerful demon king in the world. So fierce. His Excellency Lin Chen was still hiding this move. I can't imagine it. Oh my God! This is not an attack that a combat emperor should be able to unleash. He already gave me a fright when he used a Tier 8 saber, but compared to this move, using a Tier 8 saber is like playing with a toy. Many super freaks used all their abilities, but when they saw the unprecedented crater, their hearts trembled a few times. If not for the fact that Lin Chen was fighting with the three of them at the beginning, the four of them would have been far away from the chaotic battlefield. In addition, they had all listened to Lin Chen's warning and retreated in advance. It was likely that no one present would be able to escape from the explosion of that star. Even the slightest energy shockwave was enough to shatter them into nothingness. For example, Han Zongxing's corpse had been obliterated, and there wasn't even a speck of him left behind. Even all the combat emperors of the 8th realm and above, including the remaining great elders of the Han family, the two ancestors and Xin Lianyun, would have a very high chance of being completely annihilated if they were sucked into the nine-colored light beam. They would end up like Han Zongxing, not even leaving behind a corpse. Just how many more secrets does this little fellow have? It has only been a little over a year, but his transformation has actually turned the world upside down. Xin Lianyun's beautiful eyes trembled as she stared at Lin Chen on the other side. Her heart was filled with shock. In the past, a few low-level combat emperors were enough to force this high-spirited young man to leave his homeland. Now, it had only been a few seasons, but he had already returned powerfully and stood at the peak of the 9 prefectures. Even she could only look up at his back. Since the beginning of time, no one could compare to him. The experts who had accepted the summons were so impressed that they prostrated themselves on the ground. They were both overjoyed and shocked. They thought that Lin Chen had already decided to give up his life as his life force was rapidly draining away. The opposing alliance was even more terrified. In fact, they didn't lose much. They only lost 2 6th realm combat emperors and a few low-level combat emperors. The Han family and the Bai family suffered the most losses. The Bai family lost more than half of its combat emperors, and the Han family was completely annihilated except for a few high-level combat emperors. The remaining high-level combat emperors of the Han family were all hesitating and struggling. This brat still has such a powerful weapon. Should we retreat? This brat's life force was almost depleted, but now he looks as if nothing has happened. The eyes of the skinny leader suddenly turned cold. He won't do it a second time. There must be a price to pay for such an attack. This time we received a death order. Even if all of us die in battle, we must take down this brat. If we don't see his head, we will be buried in the spirit state. The skinny leader suddenly turned his head and yelled in a deep voice. The Hun family has sacrificed 2 ancestral patriarchs. Sir, you have been watching the show for a long time. If you don't make a move now, I'm afraid we will have to give up the spirit state." As soon as he finished speaking, a series of violent spatial ripples appeared in the void tens of thousands of miles away from Lin Chen. Hearing this, Lin Chen, who was about to take away the attribute light balls in the sky, suddenly froze. The 5-colored dragon spear appeared in his hand and he was ready for battle. His injuries had completely healed, but the rune energy was completely depleted. His life and death talent was also in a cooldown state. If another master as powerful as Hun Zongxing appeared, then the outcome would be uncertain. Is she coming out? The leader of the alliance. Lin Chen held his breath. Even Xin Lianyun had a serious expression on her face. That person's cultivation wasn't very strong, but she could control many masters and even give them energy to temporarily increase their strength. She was extremely powerful. As expected of the person your Hun family want. She is full of variables. A faint and elegant voice echoed in the sky, and Lin Chen's heart skipped a beat. How come this voice sounded so familiar? The woman's figure was gentle and graceful. She lightly stepped on the void, and her white dress was as white as snow, like drifting clouds. Her hair was adorned with pearls, and her hair was in a high bun. Her eyebrows were like the clouds on the autumn mountains, and her beautiful eyes were sparkling. Her lips were as red as cherry blossoms, and her teeth were as white as jade. Her beautiful appearance seemed to make all the sceneries in the world dim. If there were immortals in the mortal world, they would look like this. A fire seal was spinning in the woman's calm eyes, and there was a vague immortal civilization that could illuminate the ages. Lin Chen felt like he was struck by lightning. He froze on the spot. Sister Ruoyan? Lin Chen had never dreamed that the person he had been thinking about day and night would meet again in such a way, in such a setting, and with such an identity. "Sister Ruoyan, are you okay?" Lin Chen, who didn't react in time, walked toward her subconsciously. Bai Ruoyan frowned slightly and pressed her jade-like hand in the void. Chi. A white light that was as thin as gossamer tore through the void and struck Lin Chen's body. Clang. The tip of the spear blocked. Lin Chen's body instinctively went into a defensive posture, but he was still pushed back by more than 100 miles. Blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Wasn't Sister Ruoyan a Yuan Venerate? How could she be so strong? What's going on? What happened to Sister Ruoyan? Could it be that she doesn't recognize me? What's going on? After we parted ways at the Abyss Island, Sister Ruoyan's cultivation should only be around the 3rd level Yuan Venerate realm. How long has it been? And she's already at the 9th level Combat Emperor realm. Countless questions flashed across Lin Chen's mind. He looked at Bai Ruoyan in disbelief. "Sister Ruoyan, it's me. Lin Chen. Can't you recognize me? What happened to you? Why did you start a war in the spiritual state? Is it because of the Hun family or are they threatening you?" Lin Chen shouted hurriedly. He still didn't understand what was going on. He had been thinking about Sister Ruoyan day and night. What had happened to her? Chapter 634. Be careful, Lin Chen. She is the mastermind behind the Bai family alliance. She has been fighting with our academy for a year. Don't mistake her for someone else. Xin Lianyun shouted. The masters of the alliance and the Hun family's ancestor immediately stood in front of Xin Lianyun, not daring to give her any chance to help Lin Chen. Xin Lianyun's shout made Lin Chen's heart sink. Sister Ruoyan is the mastermind behind the Bai family alliance? She has been fighting with the academy for a year? That's not it, little brother Lin Chen. I have a reason for doing this. Suddenly, Bai Ruoyan pursed her lips and said seriously. Lin Chen froze. Bai Ruoyan said softly, "Brother Lin Chen, trust me, okay? As long as you come to my side, I will tell you the truth. As for your friends, as long as they surrender, I promise not to harm their lives. Even if you want." Bai Ruoyan's cheeks were dyed red as she smiled sweetly. As long as you want, I am willing to be your woman. I will let you become the overlord of the spirit state. I will let you rule the spirit state as long as you come to my side. As soon as she said this, the expressions of the masters changed. Why did this cold woman seem to be a different person? Lin Chen, who had always been quick-witted, fell into a struggle and hesitation for the first time. Sister, why did you do this? Can you tell me? If I can help you, I will support you with all my strength. The elders of the academy looked serious. An elder immediately shouted, Student Lin Chen, don't believe this woman's nonsense. Lin Chen, you are the last hope of the spirit state. I am betting the entire Yin family on you. Don't be foolish. If Lin Chen surrendered to the enemy camp, then the spirit state would be finished. Idiot Lin Chen. What's in your head? At this time, a woman's battle aura covered the sky as she shouted. Two beautiful figures stood in the sky. One was Yang Qing'er and the other was Shangguan Bihan. She didn't listen to Lin Chen's advice and ran back to the spiritual state alone. You've come all the way from the wasteland to this point. Is your brain useless? Think carefully about what choice you should make now. Don't forget that teacher Ling Yueqi and sister Manqing haven't woken up yet. Everyone in the academy, we are all waiting to return to the spiritual state. Shangguan Bihan's shout rang out once more, and Lin Chen's body shook as a fierce light flashed across his eyes. Sister Ruoyan, tell me the reason and surrender with your men. Lin Chen shouted sternly. Little brother Lin Chen, I beg you, don't force me, okay? As long as you come over to my side, I promise I won't harm a single hair on your head. I also won't harm your companions' lives. Bai Ruoyan begged, but Lin Chen's voice boomed like thunder. Then why didn't you come out just now? Why did you hide during the battle? Since you knew it was me, why didn't you appear when I was forced to a dead end and my life was about to fade away? Why did you only appear now? Lin Chen's expression showed a hint of pain. He bit his lips so hard that blood dripped down. You're not her. Ever since they left the wasteland, he and Sister Ruoyan had gone through several life and death situations. They had both saved each other's lives and had feelings that surpassed ordinary feelings. The two treasured each other. If it really was Bai Ruoyan, then when he used the absolute life and death talent, there was no way she wouldn't appear. With Lin Chen's brain, he only needed a moment to think. However, he refused to accept reality from the start. In this world, there was nothing more painful than facing the person you loved as your enemy. TCH, I didn't manage to lure her over. The emotions of the human race are indeed hard to grasp. To think that I even thought about the expressions and emotions this body once revealed. Let's just kill her. Bai Ruoyan withdrew all her expressions and became incomparably calm and indifferent. So it really isn't Sister Ruoyan. Then let me see what you are. Lin Chen activated the Golden Eyes twin at lightning speed and locked his gaze on Bai Ruoyan. In terms of aura, it's indeed Sister Ruoyan. However, her cultivation and spiritual essence seem to be completely different. Under the observation of the Golden Eyes twin, Lin Chen saw an immortal and inextinguishable flame burning in Bai Ruoyan's body. This flame was domineering and had the power to create or destroy everything. It was like the origin of all things and the beginning of the world. Sacred flame seed? No. It's countless times stronger than the sacred flame seed. What kind of energy is this? Lin Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. The energy in Bai Ruoyan's body was extremely similar to the sacred flame. However, it was countless times stronger than any sacred flame he had ever seen. Bai Ruoyan squinted her beautiful eyes and a ripple-like pressure suddenly broke Lin Chen's observation. The light in her eyes flickered and Lin Chen retreated dozens of steps. His eyes were stinging with pain. The Golden Eyes twin was deactivated. Your gaze makes me feel very uncomfortable. Moreover, your aura has a special effect on me. If I don't kill you, it will be very troublesome. I presume that you won't have the chance to use that move a second time. Bai Ruoyan's expression was cold. With a wave of her hand, thousands of flames covered the sky and illuminated the earth. The radiance of the sacred flame bathed the bodies of all the warriors of the Bai family alliance. The battle chi that they had consumed previously was continuously replenished. Furthermore, the energy of the sacred flame surged even more violently, increasing their strength by 30%. Roar! Countless battle emperors of the alliance let out a violent roar that shook the sky. "Thank you, my lord, for bestowing us with power." The experts of the academy were shocked. All the battle emperors of the opponent had become even more difficult to deal with. This sudden change caused the battle situation that they thought they had a chance to win to change again. Jing Yu and the others could only charge into the battle once again. The two ninth heaven early-stage ancestors that Shen Lianyun was facing had their strength increased by a wave. The battle became abnormally white-hot. "Vice Principal, let me help you." Xingzhan rushed to Shen Lianyun's battle circle. Previously, when Lin Chen was at the last moment of his life and death, he killed the two eighth heaven combat emperors of the Hun family, causing them to be unable to delay his opponent. When Xingzhan was free, he immediately went to support Shen Lianyun. The battle between the 6th-9th Heaven Combat Emperors instantly became the core battlefield of the chaotic battle circle. It's the power of the sacred flame. Once again, Lin Chen confirmed the thoughts in his heart after witnessing the increase in his cultivation base. At the same time, he realized that the current Bai Ruoyan was not his sister Ruoyan. In a trance, Lin Chen's mind flashed back to the scene that he had deduced during the Heavenly Spirit List tournament when he participated in the Divination Master competition. So, the scene that I deduced during that time was actually real. Lin Chen exhaled a breath of air with a solemn expression. I originally planned to keep it to guard against those guys from the Hun family. I didn't expect that you would be able to kill all of them by yourself. Bai Ruoyan chuckled. Her beautiful figure moved slightly and shuttled in front of Lin Chen like a fiery light. Chapter 635. This young body is even more suitable for me than this one. I must get him. With this thought, Bai Ruoyan smirked and struck out with her palm. Clenching his fist, Lin Chen struck out with his spear. Clang! Her soft and fair hand was in front of the spear, but it carried a force that could pierce through the galaxy, forcing Lin Chen to retreat. Style 91, Blood Shura. Looking at that familiar beautiful face, Lin Chen clenched his teeth and fought. Gathering his chi and blood, his pure strength exploded as he struck out with his spear. At the same time, Lin Chen's 4 doppelgangers moved quickly. The war emperors from the Hun family had dropped a large number of attribute light balls. Although they did not drop any growth-type attributes due to the God Slayer talent, there were still a large number of talent points and rune energy. Right now, what he lacked the most was rune energy. Received 19,000 cultivation technique soul essences, 13,800 rune energy, 13,200 talent points, 850 blank attributes, 14,850 rune energy, 15,000 heavenly path points. Opened 13 purple crystal treasure chests. Received 250,000 talent points, 300,000 mid-grade rune energy, 100,000 heavenly path points. As the system screen popped up, 2 divine lights flashed. Bang, bang, bang. The two of them fought fiercely, and the sound of fighting shook the heavens and earth. At first, Lin Chen was at a disadvantage, but when his doppelgangers collected attribute light balls, the penetration and charge runes were added, and Lin Chen regained the upper hand in an instant. After a short fight, Lin Chen already knew the strength of Bai Ruoyan. She was between early stage and mid-stage 9th tier. Because of the holy fire, her combat power was comparable to mid-stage 9th tier. Clang! After sweeping away Bai Ruoyan with his spear, Lin Chen's purple-gold eyes caught a sliver of an opening. At the same time, he swept out a mental wave and caught Bai Ruoyan. Then, he fiercely sent a black dragon palm towards her heart. However, Just as the black dragon palm was about to touch her, Lin Chen's expression was one of struggle. He clenched his teeth and moved his palm away, striking her left shoulder instead. Lin Chen couldn't bear to kill him, but the same couldn't be said for the other party. Her left shoulder was hit by a palm. Bai Ruoyan flicked her finger. Rip! A wisp of white light shot towards Lin Chen's cheek. Even with the defense of the 3-inch tribulation, it still left a trail of blood. I was aiming for the neck, how could it? Bai Ruoyan frowned. Lin Chen once again smashed down with his spear. She waved her jade-like hands lightly, and the afterglow of the multicolored holy flames swirled around her head in the shape of a cross. When she blocked the tip of Lin Chen's spear, 25% of the spear's power penetrated her body, causing her jade-like hands to go numb from the impact. Boom! With a thunderous roar, Lin Chen's deity's shadow wind fiend kick swept towards Bai Ruoyan's head. However, when Lin Chen saw the side of the beauty's face, he still couldn't bring himself to kill her. His leg moved to the side and he missed at close range. His leg broke a mountain range in the space below. Go to hell! Faint milky white flames swirled around her jade-like fingers. While Lin Chen was hesitating, Bai Ruoyan's killing intent was awe-inspiring. Her 2 fingers fiercely pierced towards Lin Chen's heart. Just as her jade-like fingers were about to pierce through Lin Chen's heart, an intense headache rocked his mind, and a faintly suppressed spiritual will appeared. Bai Ruoyan revealed a pained expression. Her 2 fingers slanted and pierced through Lin Chen's 3-inch tribulation defense, piercing through his chest. However, she missed his heart. Blood flowed from the corner of Lin Chen's mouth. However, at this moment, when he saw the pain on the face of the person in front of him, as well as the complexity and tenderness in her eyes, Lin Chen subconsciously cried out, "Sister Ruoyan!" It was as if time and space had been distorted for an instant. Bai Ruoyan regained her previous indifference and struck out with her palm again, full of killing intent. Lin Chen blocked the spear. This palm strike was full of killing intent again, but it hadn't been released yet. Bang! The 2 of them were forced to retreat. Lin Chen flapped his purple phoenix wings and dodged again. The 2 of them started fighting again, but the atmosphere of the battle was extremely strange. Not only Shen Lianyun, but even Xing Zhan, Fang Ling, and the other 8th-level combat emperors could clearly see that the battle between Lin Chen and Bai Ruoyan was full of flaws. It could be said that it was full of flaws, and there were no signs of them truly fighting with their lives on the line. However, since it was full of flaws, there were no signs of them fighting with their lives on the line, and the 2 of them were continuously injured, yet neither of them could do anything to the other. Strange. Very strange. Putting Lin Chen aside, everyone could clearly feel that Bai Ruoyan was completely filled with killing intent towards Lin Chen. However, every time she attacked, she would always miss a vital point at the most crucial moment. This kind of extremely low-level mistake would be impossible for any Yuan Venerate to make. How could it happen to a 9th-level combat emperor? Either Bai Ruoyan didn't want to kill him, or she was hesitating. However, it was impossible for her, who already had killing intent, to hesitate. Why was that? Why couldn't she kill Lin Chen? Her fair and slender jade-like hands slapped the body of the spear, and both of them were forced back once again. At this moment, Lin Chen was covered in blood. His injuries were serious, and he was constantly using the wood spirit essence technique to recover. Bai Ruoyan frowned slightly. Lin Chen's battle prowess was actually increasing with the passing of time and the power of his battle skills. She raised her slightly trembling hand, her beautiful eyes filled with doubt and confusion. What made her feel incredulous was that she hadn't killed Lin Chen all this time. That's not right. Every attack I made was filled with killing intent. It was the body itself that refused to kill him. Only when facing this brat, this body is resisting killing him. Bai Ruoyan frowned and muttered to herself, I really can't understand human emotions. Is this person that important to you? At most, we were together for a period of time. Could it be that you're going to resist me? Forget it. Since the body itself is resisting killing this person, then I'll refine his body into my slave and make him my next body. Bai Ruoyun's expression became increasingly cold and indifferent. Lin Chen, who had fully activated his golden eyes twin, suddenly felt a hair-raising sense of danger. Countless bad luck was lingering around him. He could clearly see the endless might of the sacred flame and the civilization it had created surging out of Bai Ruoyun's body. His expression changed drastically, and he quickly retreated while shouting to everyone, "The situation has changed. Retreat quickly." Rumble. As soon as he finished speaking, dozens of milky white flaming chains suddenly shot out from the void beside Bai Ruoyun. They were extremely fast, as if they had jumped through space and locked onto Lin Chen's entire body. A sudden change occurred. The top fighters from both sides stopped fighting and quickly retreated, their expressions uncertain. Dragon power exploded. Lin Chen activated his 8,990,000 dragon power points and golden calamity battle body. He waved his fist fiercely, and streams of golden aura wrapped around his fist that could shatter mountains and rivers. However, he couldn't shake those flaming chains at all. Creak! A majestic and profound aura was transmitted from the endless void. The milky white flames burned to the sky, and an ancient door that was tens of thousands of feet tall opened from the sea of flames. It was burning with white flames, like an immortal and indestructible sacred relic. Chapter 636. Seeing the huge door, the expressions of the powerhouses from the Sky Song Academy changed drastically, and they cried out in shock. This is the door to the Holy Fire Level. The Holy Fire Level was the spiritual state's secret land of heaven and earth. It would only open automatically within a set time, and no one could control it, not even the saints. Otherwise, the Holy Fire Level would have been controlled by the saints in the history of the spiritual state. However, this woman could control the Holy Fire Level. Who was she? Lin Chen activated his 9 calamity combat body, and his body spun in the air. The wind from his spear was like a tornado, and it barely broke a few flame chains. This is the end, kid. I originally planned to keep it to prevent the people from the Hun family, but I have no choice but to use it on you. Bai Ruoyun sneered and pulled Lin Chen into the Holy Fire Level door. Meanwhile, she turned into a stream of light and entered the Holy Fire Level door. No! In the distance, Shangguan Bihan and Yang Qinger's pretty faces changed slightly, and Vice President Xin Lianyun's face darkened immediately. It was unknown whether he could come out of the Holy Fire Level again after entering it. Moreover, she knew that Lin Chen's real cultivation level was only mid-level combat Emperor level 3. Although she did not know what method he used to temporarily increase his ability, it was only temporary after all. Once the increase in strength was over, Lin Chen's real ability would not be her opponent at all. Xingzhan, hurry up and break their attack. We can't let anything happen to Lin Chen for nothing. Xin Lianyun's expression was extremely cold. As she spoke in a low voice, a pure gold brilliance swirled in her pupils, causing Xingzhan's body to tremble. The 2 Hun family patriarchs' expressions changed, and her aura became even more terrifying. It's time to get rid of all of you. Holy Fire Level. The familiar land once again came into view. This was the Holy Fire Level that Lin Chen had reached when he was a heavenly strength realm. Even the battle dragon platform could be seen clearly. Lin Chen's expression was extremely solemn. There was only one possibility for Bai Ruoyun to be able to open the Holy Fire Level. That was, she herself was the Holy Fire and had absolute control over the Holy Fire Level. This fact had completely confirmed what Lin Chen had seen with his King Tong twins. The origin of the sacred fire was in Bai Ruoyun's body. The origin of the eternal sacred fire was divided into 9 parts and existed in the 9 provinces. The sacred fire seeds all originated from the 9 sacred fire origins. At this moment, within Bai Ruoyun's body, It was very likely that one of the 9 great sacred flame origins was present. Clang! As the spear rotated, Lin Chen smashed apart all the flame chains that bound him. A beautiful figure in white slowly appeared in the void, and her cold and light laughter echoed between heaven and earth. In this place, even a late 9th-level combat emperor is no match for me. Your body belongs to me. Boom! The clouds split open. With a light wave of her sleeve, a milky white flaming palm descended from the sky. It was more than 1,000,000 feet in size, and it suddenly slammed towards Lin Chen. Lin Chen's pupils constricted. Flapping his purple phoenix wings, he transformed into moonlight and retreated rapidly. Chi! Chi! The sound of the wind breaking was like a series of sonic booms. Streaks of flames shot out, and Lin Chen kept retreating. After his dragon power had skyrocketed, the speed of his purple phoenix wings had also increased by more than a few times. With the help of his Qingtong twins and his speed, Lin Chen barely managed to avoid many of Bai Ruoyan's attacks. However, within the holy fire level, the energy of heaven and earth was endless, and she could completely use it. Bang! Lin Chen stepped into the void, turned his body, and transformed into a beam of moonlight, and charged towards Bai Ruoyan. Buzz! The white light pillar bloomed, supporting heaven and earth, and crashed onto Lin Chen's head. The destructive energy that it contained caused his expression to change, and he made another turn, barely dodging it. Boom! The light beam blasted open the earth veins, creating a deep abyss along the way. Lin Chen was gasping for breath. If this goes on, I'll be exhausted to death. The space barrier here has been completely sealed, and it's controlled by Sister Ruoyan. It's extremely difficult to break it by force. Absolute life and death is already in cooldown. Even if I risk my life and am lucky enough to use Sovereign's Descent, there aren't enough enemies here for me to accumulate energy. Not to mention using the second God Slayer talent. Once the God Slayer talent's time limit was up, he would truly become a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. Whether it was the level 5 slow rune, Sovereign's Descent, or the second God Slayer talent, Lin Chen could not find a chance to turn the tables and defeat his opponent. Moreover, he himself might not be able to kill her. Even if she was controlled by the Holy Fire origin, she was still Sister Ruoyan. Suddenly, sonic booms resounded everywhere. Several milky white flame ribbons flashed past like sharp blades. Dozens of flaming chains exploded in the air, locking onto Lin Chen. Lin Chen's expression changed. While he was retreating, his spear fiercely swept out, thrusting out dozens of times. Just as he was repelled by the flaming chains, the sharp blade cut through his legs and right arm. Puff! Blood spurted out. When Lin Chen's meridians and tendons were severed, the giant flaming palm grabbed Lin Chen from afar. Your body is mine. As Bai Ruoyan laughed coldly, a will that could not be defied seeped into Lin Chen's mind. Oh no! It's the Holy Fire will in the spiritual state's Holy Fire seed. Lin Chen knew that things were not going well. The opponent was trying to control him by force. The Holy Fire will burned Lin Chen's mind like a sea of hellfire. It continued to invade his mental bridge, trying to enslave him by force. Boom! Boom! The mental bridge continued to emit massive waves of mental energy, resisting the invasion of the Holy Fire will. The mental energy of a Heaven Ascension Realm middle stage is almost close to that of a Heaven Ascension Realm late stage. What a strong will! It's very difficult to enslave someone of this mental state. Forget it. Forget about enslaving him. I'll just take over his body. Bai Ruoyan hugged Lin Chen. When their foreheads touched, Lin Chen's mental consciousness pulled him into a brand new mental world. In this mental world, the empty space was filled with milky white flames. Lin Chen's mental body could clearly see that every wisp of flame around him had the power of the origin of creation. More importantly, with his mental state, he wouldn't be able to last long in this mental world. This is Sister Ruoyan's mental world. Just as Lin Chen realized the world he was in, boom! A pillar of fire rose up, and a blurry flaming figure stepped out of the pillar of fire. All the flames in the mental world roared at the same time, controlled by it. When it saw Lin Chen, it suddenly threw a punch at him, the mental flames condensing into a fist storm. Lin Chen's mental body wasn't afraid either, and he threw a punch in the opposite direction. Bam! Mental energy waves exploded. Lin Chen and the blurry figure, whose face couldn't even be seen clearly, exchanged dozens of punches. Waves of mental energy exploded between the two of them. Lin Chen, who had been pushed back, was about to charge forward again when he suddenly froze on the spot. He discovered that a naked, snow-white figure was lying quietly under the pillar of fire. The curves of her body were like a perfect masterpiece. It was Bai Ruoyan. Chapter 637. That snow-white and perfect naked body was Bai Ruoyan's spiritual origin. This used to be her spiritual world. I've already learned how to control a human's cultivation and body. Plus, you're dangerous, so I might not be able to suppress you. Therefore, I don't need your spiritual origin. Die. The blurry figure's voice was still Bai Ruoyan's. It threw out several punches which Lin Chen blocked with a backhand. His spiritual body kept retreating. You're the sacred flame? Lin Chen's gaze stared fixedly at the blurry figure as he questioned coldly. Lin Chen could roughly guess that the blurry figure was the spiritual will of the sacred flame's origin. This was Sister Ruoyan's spiritual world. Since it could exist here, perhaps Sister Ruoyan could still be saved if he got rid of it. I used to be the sacred flame, but I've already gathered my spirit for countless years. You'll become my most perfect decoration. After I get your body, I'll become the most perfect creature in this world. Die. The sacred flame's spirit didn't erase Bai Ruoyan's spirit and memories. Otherwise, Bai Ruoyan's spiritual consciousness wouldn't have fallen into a deep slumber here. Instead, it would have completely disappeared. Because this was the first time the sacred flame's spirit had gathered its spirit, it didn't have a complete body. It also didn't know how to control a human's body and battle chi. Therefore, it had to borrow Bai Ruoyan's spiritual power and memories to quickly familiarize itself with a human's body and control its battle chi. After it successfully gathered its spirit, it didn't have any emotions or desires. It also didn't have any concept of the opposite sex. Therefore, it didn't understand why Bai Ruoyan's body would resist it because of Lin Chen. This was because it wasn't fully formed. If it erased Bai Ruoyan's spiritual power, other than its original spiritual wisdom, its knowledge of battle chi body, and the world would be like a newborn baby. It would have to rely on itself to familiarize itself with a human's body. These steps would be very troublesome. It might take more than 10 years to familiarize itself with them. Therefore, the spirit of the sacred fire did not erase Bai Ruoyan's spirit and memories. On the contrary, it wanted to use these to help it become a more perfect human. It decided to merge its consciousness with Bai Ruoyan's spirit instead of erasing her spirit and forcefully taking over her body. Bai Ruoyan's spirit and consciousness still existed, but the spirit of the sacred fire's energy was too strong. She was completely suppressed. However, it was different now. The foundation it needed to grasp had already been obtained from Bai Ruoyan's spirit and memories. Facing Lin Chen, the only method it would use was to kill him. Complete annihilation. Seize Lin Chen's body. If you were in the outside world, I really wouldn't be able to do anything to you. However, if you dare to pull me into the spiritual world, you're courting death. Suddenly, Lin Chen's spiritual body looked up to the sky and laughed maniacally. Outside, in the void of the 10,000 spirit sea, in the midst of the chaotic battle, the Dragon Emperor retreated in the direction of the 4 doppelgangers as if they had a telepathic connection. When he took away all of their weapons, the 4 doppelgangers suddenly exploded into nothingness. Lin Chen's doppelganger has disappeared. Oh no! Could he have met with some mishap? If His Excellency Lin Chen has died, wouldn't our trip be in vain? No, he won't die so easily. Many powerhouses from the Academy and the Summoning Order were shocked by the disappearance of Lin Chen's doppelganger. Only the pair of beautiful sisters among the inheritors of the Boundary Suppression Sacred Monument were rather calm. They firmly believed in Lin Chen. No matter what, we must break open the Holy Fire Realm door and save that little guy. If he dies, it's useless even if we win. He'll have to deal with the spatial point. In the Holy Fire Realm, Bai Ruoyun's delicate body and Lin Chen were stuck together. Rings of milky white flames burned around the two of them, continuously burning the flames that burned their spirit. At this moment, their foreheads were pressed together. Both of them had their eyes closed, and their spirit consciousness was immersed in Bai Ruoyun's spiritual world. In the spiritual world, Lin Chen was suppressed again and again until he was forced to retreat. His spirit was gradually depleted, and he was almost exhausted. Is this the trump card you were talking about? You can't even withstand a single blow, you really can't withstand a single blow. The spirit of the Holy Fire laughed arrogantly. Seeing that Lin Chen's spirit was severely depleted, a hint of human-like greed appeared in its spirit waves. I wonder what level I can reach after merging with this body of yours. Only Lin Chen, who was bitterly persevering, had a determined look in his eyes from the beginning to the end. He did not waver at all. Bang! There was an explosion of spirit waves. After being forced back by another punch, Lin Chen's spirit form became more and more illusory and transparent. Now is the time. Die. The spirit of the Holy Fire suddenly charged toward Lin Chen, bursting into a rare greedy and ferocious smile. Boom boom boom. Lin Chen's spirit form suddenly circulated with a purple brilliance. In a short moment, his spirit had recovered to its peak. At this moment, Lin Chen brazenly threw out another punch. He forced the spirit of the Holy Fire back with one punch, and he himself retreated dozens of steps with a mocking expression. However, the spirit of the Holy Fire's expression changed drastically. What's going on? Lin Chen shook his finger and said mockingly, Eternal Holy Fire, you're just an incomplete fellow. You're still a little lacking when it comes to showing off in front of me. Lin Chen was naturally using the ultimate Guiyuan talent. Just because Lin Chen had been pulled into the spirit world did not mean that the system was no longer under his control. As long as Lin Chen was still alive, the system would always follow his consciousness, and all of his system functions could still be activated. The ultimate Guiyuan talent could instantly replenish Lin Chen's spirit. As long as he had enough talent points, it was completely impossible for the spirit of the Holy Fire to wipe out Lin Chen's spirit consciousness. However, this was only one of Lin Chen's plans. Rip! A spiritual flash tore open, and 4 spiritual light pillars fell from the sky at the same time, disappearing into 4 spirit forms. These were Lin Chen's phantom runes. The doppelgangers created by the phantom runes were not limited to the physical body. They could also create spirit consciousness forms. However, Lin Chen's 4 doppelgangers did not have spiritual power at the peak of Heavenly Ascension Realm intermediate stage. They were only at the early stage of Heavenly Ascension Realm. This was because only Lin Chen's main body could possess spiritual power at this level after activating the God Slayer talent. The 5 spirit forms, including Lin Chen's, immediately rushed toward the spirit of the Holy Fire. At this moment, the spirit of the Holy Fire finally realized how serious the problem was, and it wanted to retreat from the spirit world in a panic. It's not that simple. Lin Chen's main body struck out with his palm, and the grayish-white rune shot out like a bolt of lightning. The rune's energy was reduced by 800,000 points. His level 5 slowing rune was still effective in the spirit world. Rip! The grayish-white rune exploded, and the spirit of the Holy Fire was bound to the ground. Being hit by the slowing rune in the spirit world meant that one's spirit consciousness would become extremely slow, and it would be extremely difficult to react. Extremely slow. Boom. Lin Chen's main body punched through the spirit of the holy fire's spirit form completely. I didn't expect you to have this trick up your sleeve. I admit you're better than me, but I won't let you have your way. I can still make the entire holy fire level self-destruct, and you'll return to chaos. The spirit of the holy fire let out a long howl. Was it going to self-destruct the holy fire level? It wanted to destroy Lin Chen's spirit along with his physical body. Chapter 638. Even a rabbit would bite when cornered, let alone this holy fire spirit that had reunited for tens of thousands of years. Lin Chen had forced it into a dead end. Even if it risked losing its intelligence, it wanted to destroy Lin Chen. It thought that it had the situation under control when it was in the holy fire realm and was not afraid of Lin Chen at all. It even wanted to possess Lin Chen's body. However, after entering the spiritual realm, Lin Chen's plan and changes this time turned the tables completely. It could not even leave the spiritual realm now. If things went wrong, it might not even be able to keep its current body. This time, it admitted that it had lost. It could not defeat this young human in this possession. However, it was not to be trifled with. It still had one last chance to self-destruct its entire holy fire level. After the holy fire spirit let out a long howl, Lin Chen smirked and punched through its body again. Thud! The spiritual punch penetrated, and the holy fire spirit's spirit was damaged. It was in disbelief. Explode! Explode! Why isn't there any reaction? The holy fire spirit roared a few times, but the holy fire level outside the spiritual realm did not react at all. It was not under its control at all. Lin Chen waved his fists fiercely, attacking wildly as he laughed mockingly. Ha ha ha! Scream, jump! You're naughty. Weren't you arrogant and cocky just now? Controlling the situation? Do you think you're cool? What did you do? How can my holy fire level not be under my control? Compared to its spirit being destroyed, the holy fire spirit was more afraid of not being able to control its holy fire level. Slap! Lin Chen grabbed its spirit and laughed mockingly. From now on, you're no longer the master of the holy fire level, and you're no longer the eternal holy fire. If you don't believe me, turn around and look. After Lin Chen finished speaking, the holy fire spirit turned around in disbelief, and its emotions changed drastically. The original holy fire beam had disappeared. It had been cut off by Lin Chen's 4 spirit clones. The boundless light of the holy fire flowed back into her perfect, fair, and delicate body. That was right. Not only did Lin Chen activate the delaying rune to stop the holy fire spirit from exploding, but more importantly, he wanted to cut off the spiritual connection between Bai Ruoyan and the spirit when it was least focused on Bai Ruoyan. That was the most important thing. That was the key to the entire situation. That had been Lin Chen's goal since the beginning. It was also the reason why he had not used ultimate restoration at the risk of his life and pretended to be weak. He was waiting for a chance. Otherwise, defeating the spirit of the holy fire's willpower in Bai Ruoyan's spiritual world would be useless. If it realized that it could not erase its will and could not possess its body, it would remove its spiritual world immediately and return to the holy fire realm. Lin Chen would still be no match for it. By that time, it of the holy fire level of the holy fire level's fire level. Therefore, there was only one chance to win. The moment that could decide Lin Chen's fate and the fate of the entire spiritual state, it all depended on whether Lin Chen could cut off the holy fire spirit's control over Bai Ruoyan's mind. My holy fire! While the holy fire spirit was murmuring to itself, Lin Chen and his spirit clones rushed forward. Countless spirit waves erupted like landslides and tsunamis, shattering its last bit of spiritual will into pieces. The holy fire spirit completely disappeared from the world. Its intellect and consciousness had all vanished into thin air. It no longer existed. If it were in the past, it might not have disappeared so completely. However, in this battle, It fought with all its might to possess Lin Chen's body. It didn't hold back at all, hoping that after destroying Lin Chen's spiritual will, it could take over his body with its perfect spiritual will. The holy fire spirit had disappeared. For the eternal holy fire, it had only lost its intelligence. The origin of the holy fire still existed. However, it no longer had intelligence. Its most fatal mistake was its carelessness. Thinking that it could take down Lin Chen, it kept attacking Lin Chen with its spiritual will. Its suppression of Bai Ruoyan was weakened to an unprecedented level. Phew! It's really a matter of life and death. Lin Chen secretly wiped away his cold sweat and removed his spirit clone. The whole spiritual world returned to normal. With the disappearance of the spirit of the sacred fire, the eternal sacred fire would once again return to its mindless state. When the spirit of the sacred fire possessed Bai Ruoyan, it had already refined its own origin into Bai Ruoyan's body, perfectly merging with her. That was right. Bai Ruoyan was the only holy fire level and the owner of the eternal holy fire. In this game, Lin Chen looked relaxed, but in fact, he was walking on the edge of a knife. Outside the holy fire, none of his trump cards could threaten the holy fire spirit. Therefore, in the spiritual world, it was his only chance to turn the tables. If anything went wrong, he would die for sure. The holy fire spirit dissipated. The endless spiritual afterglow fluttered like snowflakes and scattered in the spiritual world. Lin Chen hurriedly flew to Bai Ruoyan's side. After checking carefully, he sighed in relief. Her origin of spirit and memories were not damaged at all. At that moment, the perfect, delicate, snow-white body trembled slightly. When she slowly opened her eyes, her beautiful eyes were swirling and her gaze was blurred. "Sister Ruoyan, you're awake." Before Lin Chen could finish speaking, the beauty hugged him. Even though they were in the spiritual world, Lin Chen could still feel the beauty's warmth and softness, causing his spiritual consciousness to tremble uncontrollably. "Brother Lin Chen, the beauty murmured softly, her beautiful eyes blurred. Before Lin Chen could respond, her cherry lips covered the young man's lips. The holy fire burned, and the most primitive desire in the spiritual consciousness was stimulated. In the spiritual world, the void was the bed, and the holy fire was the blanket. Who would have thought that the dragon would turn upside down and the phoenix would sing? Longing and concern were closely attached, only wishing to never be separated. After some time, in the holy fire realm, Lin Chen and Bai Ruoyan's foreheads were pressed together. Although there was a fire burning in the spiritual world, nothing happened between the two in reality. Suddenly, the two's eyelashes fluttered, and they opened their eyes almost at the same time. Their breaths were very close, and they were close to each other's cheeks. Their eyes met, and the emotions in their eyes were very complicated. There was worry, happiness, concern, and shyness. After all, in the spiritual world, the two were completely honest with each other. Cough. Brother Lin Chen, Bai Ruoyan opened her cherry lips and spoke first. Rip. Lin Chen's eyes were red. While he was panting heavily, he violently tore apart the beauty's sleeve, revealing Bai Ruoyan's snow-white and delicate arm. Brother Lin Chen, wait a minute. Bai Ruoyan's face was red. She was embarrassed and shocked. She bit her red lips lightly, and her green eyes were evasive. She was like a beautiful and peerless fairy who had fallen into love. Her beauty was beyond compare. Lin Chen hugged the beauty's slender waist and growled like a wild beast. We'll talk about it later. Chapter 639. Being honest with her in the spiritual realm had exhausted Lin Chen's longing and concern. However, Mr. Lu had said it well. Even the rain and dew should be shared. The elder brother is full, but the younger brother hasn't eaten yet. Bai Ruoyan was embarrassed and shocked. Just when Lin Chen was about to push her down and do her on the spot. Rumble. Bang. An earth-shattering impact shook the void. A space crack was torn open in the holy fire realm, and a group of people rushed in. Lin Chen, where are you? If you're not dead, say something. Master Lin Chen, we're here to save you. Witch from the Alliance, how dare you capture my handsome man? How dare you bully a young man? Come at me if you dare. All the powerhouses rushed into the holy fire realm. Shen Lianyun was in the lead, looking around vigilantly. Suddenly, everyone was stunned when they saw the scene in front of them. Mr. Lin's eyes were red as he grabbed the mastermind behind the Bai Clan's alliance. From the looks of it, he was about to tear apart the other party's clothes. Silence, silence on the side of death. The atmosphere was frozen in silence. Both parties stared at each other, dumbfounded. Awkward. Very King awkward. Most of the people who entered the Holy Fire Realm were super geniuses from the Sky Song Academy and the inheritance of the Sacred Monument. They came in with determination and faith. What the CK was going on? They were fighting outside, and this guy was going to fight in the Holy Fire Realm with a beauty in his arms? DPS? T. Then why were they working so hard outside? Well, the weather today is pretty good. I suddenly feel like hugging a pretty girl. Coincidentally, there are only the two of us in the Holy Fire Realm. As the saying goes, hugging is healthier, right? Lin Chen scratched his head and smiled awkwardly. This was too late. What should Brother Chen do? He hasn't eaten yet. T. Little guy, be careful of this woman. Vice President Shen Lianyun suddenly shouted. Everyone around them was on high alert. She was the mastermind of the Bai family alliance. If she was not killed, there would be no peace in the spiritual state. Lin Chen hurriedly waved his hand and said, Everyone, don't get too excited. Let me finish. Lin Chen explained the entire sequence of events in a very simple manner, from the origin of the Holy Flame to the fact that he had killed the spirit of the Holy Flame, leaving everyone dumbfounded. They even suspected that Lin Chen had been brainwashed by this woman. However, considering the situation in the outside world, the credibility of this was extremely high. The reason why they were able to break in was because the Bai family alliance outside had betrayed them. No, to be more precise, he had given up on attacking and changed his target. They did not continue to attack the people from the Heavenly Song Academy. Instead, all the people from the ancient families targeted the remaining people from the Bai and Hun families. Only then did they have the time to break open the Holy Fire level door. In other words, the spirit of the Saint Fire is dead, and the eternal Saint Fire of the spiritual state is inside Miss Bai Ruoyern's body? I didn't expect the two of you to be in such a situation. Everyone exclaimed in admiration. This encounter was really too miraculous. Yes. Apart from that, because of the will of the seed of the Holy Flame, I can control all the people from the spiritual state outside. Otherwise, everyone wouldn't be free. Bai Ruoyern smiled faintly. In reality, she had not finished speaking. The reason why they were able to break in was that when Lin Chen hugged her, he panicked and gave them the opportunity to break in. Under normal circumstances, even a grade 9 combat emperor would not be able to break open the Holy Fire level door by force. Countless people looked at Bai Ruoyan with envy. That was one of the 9 origins of the eternal Saint Fire. It was already a great gift for an ordinary person to obtain a seed of the Holy Flame, let alone monopolizing the origin of the eternal Saint Fire. This was equivalent to continuously receiving the nourishment of the Holy Flame. This was an opportunity that no one in the entire 9 states had the right to enjoy. The origin of the Holy Flame was too mysterious. Even the legendary sages could not forcefully refine it if they obtained it. Such a godly item was related to the secret of the birth of 9 states. It contained endless mysteries. Even during the era of the 100 sages, no one could claim it as their own. However, the Holy Flame was able to gather spirit. The Holy Flame's intellect and will were able to merge into a human's body. Such a good thing might only happen once in history. There was no doubt that Bai Ruoyan, who possessed the eternal Saint Fire, had potential that was no less than Lin Chen's in the entire 9 states. How could people not be envious? Such potential and opportunity were unique in 9 states. Bai Ruoyan's heart was filled with endless tenderness and warmth. During the period when she was suppressed by the holy flame's will, both of them shared their memories. She also knew how much Lin Chen had risked his life for her. This so-called opportunity might not be worth mentioning compared to the importance of this young man in her heart. Let's go out first and kill all the lackeys of the fake god. Lin Chen's eyes were filled with ferocity. Although the time limit of his god slayer talent had ended and his cultivation level had recovered to the peak of the intermediate 3rd level combat emperor, it was different from before. With Bai Ruoyan around, all the ancient families in the spiritual state were now standing on Lin Chen's side. The remaining people from the Han family were like generals without an army, fighting with numbers. This was Lin Chen's favorite thing to do. There's no need for that. It's fine here. Bai Ruoyan smiled gracefully and waved her sleeves. The door of the holy fire realm continued to open. A milky white sea of fire covered the entire sky and shone down. Within the range of the sea of fire, regardless of whether it was the experts who received the summons, the Han family, the Bai family, or the ancient family alliance, all living beings were transported to the holy fire realm. Rumble. Holy light descended from the sky. When those people entered the holy fire realm, many experts from the college were dumbfounded. This was too terrifying. If they were suddenly transported to the opponent's battlefield during the battle, it would be a fatal threat. Every time the holy fire realm was activated, it would consume a lot of energy. Otherwise, the spirit of the holy fire would have been used frequently. However, to Bai Ruoyan, as long as she could help Lin Chen, the so-called consumption was just a passing cloud. This was because he was the most important person. What's going on? What do you mean by this? Don't tell me you want to become enemies with the Han family and our true god ancestor? The remaining 2 9th-level combat emperors and 3 supreme elders of the Han family scolded Bai Ruoyan coldly. Master, what's going on? The combat emperors of the Bai family cried and howled. They could not understand why they were attacked by their master. Any expert who was controlled by the holy fires would be absolutely loyal to the eternal holy fire's orders. The Han family is not as important as a single strand of his hair. Bai Ruoyan smiled faintly and said nonchalantly. Hearing this, many experts cast envious gazes at Lin Chen. To be able to gain the favor of such a genius was simply a blessing from saving the world in his previous life. Lin Chen immediately puffed out his chest and raised his head. He lifted his collar and placed his hands on his waist, looking very smug and arrogant. Seeing this, everyone wanted to beat this B***tch up. What are you looking at? Brother Chen's stomach is fine. Do you think I'm a freeloader? You have a handsome face, yet you want to rely on your strength and talent. Even if you're a freeloader, you're a freeloader. You're a freeloader. Don't be infatuated with me. Having strength and a handsome face is just willful and boring. Chapter 640. Sister Ruoyan Attack. Lin Chen stood behind Bai Ruoyan, bossing her around with an arrogant face. Everyone's mouths twitched. The amount of admiration they had for Lin Chen a day ago was equal to how much they wanted to hit him now. All right. Bai Ruoyan smiled sweetly. This scene was very much like how Bai Ruoyan had protected the immature Lin Chen all those years ago. Rumble. Bai Ruoyan waved her sleeves lightly and pointed her fingertips. Numerous milky white flames rapidly condensed into countless energy fingers that fell from the sky. Xingzhan and the rest quickly retreated, leaving Bai Ruoyan alone. The expressions of the 2 Han family patriarchs changed abruptly. Even Lin Chen could not help but exclaim. This attack was even more powerful than the Holy Fire Spirit back then. The Holy Fire Spirit had only obtained its body for about a year. It had only just learned how to control human cultivation base and various other aspects, so it was not considered proficient. However, it was different for Bai Ruoyan. Even though her cultivation base had skyrocketed, she was an existence that could perfectly control her own strength. This was because she was the owner of this body. Lock. The holy firelight pillar traversed the clouds and turned into endless flaming chains that covered the sky and covered the earth. The Hun family powerhouses did not even have the chance to retreat. They could only fight with all their might. Such powerful ability! I might stand a chance in the outside world, but in this holy fire level, even I'm no match for her. Shen Lianyun shook her head and exclaimed. Merely 20 rounds had passed, and the Hun family's upper echelons were all at a disadvantage. They were no match for her at all. It's over. The Hun family's upper echelons gritted their teeth, and were about to tear a dimensional jade slip when Lin Chen's eyes suddenly focused. These fellows wanted to escape. You won't stand a chance? Bai Ruoyan seemed to have expected this. With a flick of her slender fingers, a white glow tore through the void and instantly shattered the dimensional jade slip. Die! Bai Ruoyan pressed her palm down again. The energy within the holy fire level changed abruptly and turned into a flaming palm that was hundreds of thousands of feet long, slamming down violently. Shen Lianyun's figure flashed like a flash of light. As she flashed to both sides, she attacked together with Bai Ruoyan. With the two strongest people present working together, 2 beginner 9th-level Alliance patriarchs and Xing Zhan assisting, the Hun family's upper echelons were completely at a disadvantage. In less than 200 rounds, all of his opponents had been severely injured. Damn it, you forced me to do this. Since I've entered the enemy's ranks, I have no intention of leaving alive. A middle-stage LV9 Grand Elder of Hun family suddenly roared as his battle chi fate wheel started to rotate at an extremely high speed. His vast and profound battle chi surged like a raging sea, causing the space to tremble. The expressions of the Renhuangs changed slightly. The self-destruction of a mid-9th level combat emperor was something that even a late 9th level combat emperor would have to avoid. If they were caught in the shockwaves, they would either be injured or crippled, or die. You have no chance, Holy Fire Seal, Bai Ruoyan coldly shouted. With a light clench of her jade-like hand, tens of thousands of needle-like white lights appeared out of nowhere and shot into the bodies of the 5 people from the Hun family. Burn! The white light turned into a seal, outlining the fiery patterns and carving them into the bodies of the 5 Hun family members. After doing all this, Bai Ruoyan's pretty face was slightly pale. Lin Chen immediately rushed to her side to support her. Bai Ruoyan shook her head and smiled. It's just that the consumption is a bit high. No need to worry. The raging battle chi of the Hun family's patriarch was immediately suppressed. The 5 of them could not believe that 90% of their battle chi had been sealed. Bai Ruoyan could only do this when she was on the Holy Fire level, when the Eternal Holy Fire's power was maximized. Sealing 2 mid-stage combat emperors and 3 mid-9th level combat emperors. Other than Bai Ruoyan, only a sage could do this. Now, anyone who was above the 7th level combat emperor could threaten the 5 of them. Whoosh! The space froze and Shen Lianyun controlled the 5 of them. The space was sealed, and they did not even have the chance to self-destruct. Don't worry, leave the rest to me. Lin Chen smiled. Bai Ruoyan nodded and stood quietly behind him. Seeing that the last 5 people from the Hun family had been captured, the faces of the Bai family members instantly changed. Being heavily surrounded, they could not escape from the Holy Fire level even if they wanted to. Lin Chen stepped into the air and floated in front of the 5 people from the Hun family. When they saw this young man again, their faces were filled with fear. Instead of being a human, you chose to be a dog. Do you regret your fate now? Lin Chen's expression was cold and merciless as he questioned the 5 of them. Every pseudogod family's top experts were once experts from all over the 9 continents. They formed a family because of the pseudogod. In reality, they did not have any connections before they formed the family. You're just a kid on the combat emperor level. How can you resist the great true god? Ha 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 ha. So what if you kill us? We've failed. The true God has his own plan. The true God's will descend upon the 9 continents in the near future. You, Lin Chen, will be the first person to die. The 2 patriarchs of the Han family laughed hysterically. They were not afraid of death. Then I'll wait for them. A group of criminals from the sacred boundary prison. How dare they call themselves true gods? If they dare to descend upon the 9 continents, I, Lin Chen, will smash their heads. As for you, go to hell and apologize to those women who were turned into objects by you. Lin Chen suddenly slammed his palm down furiously. The 5 of them had their skulls completely shattered. Godly Stealing Omen has been successfully activated. 110,000 talent points have been consumed. Received 800,000 talent points, 700,000 rune energy, 500,000 cultivation technique essences, 10,000 fire elemental energy, and 10 million battle chi essences. After killing the 5 of them with 1 palm, Lin Chen had also activated the Godly Stealing Omen. The 5 of them fell. Their bodies floated in the air. Even though their cultivation levels were sealed, they were still 9th and 8th level combat emperors. With Lin Chen's current strength, it would be difficult for him to shatter their bodies. However, Lin Chen summoned the Azure Dragon and swallowed the bodies of the 5 combat emperors. These were the bodies of 8th and 9th level combat emperors. There were only a few of them in the 9 continents. Seeing the last 5 of the Han family fall, the crowd sighed and sighed in their hearts. Who would have thought that the war that had lasted for such a long time in the spiritual state would end in such a way? Beside the 5 of them, countless elemental light balls turned into a dazzling array of dazzling and translucent light balls. There was also an orange light pillar and 9 purple crystal treasure chests. Unlike before, Lin Chen, who had activated the God Slayer talent, couldn't receive any growth elemental light balls. He could only receive cultivation technique essences, rune energy, talent points, and other non-growth elemental light balls that had been weakened to a certain extent. However, the growth elemental light and battle chi essences didn't drop. But now, his God Slayer talent had been removed. These elemental light balls were the complete elemental light balls of the 9th and 8th level combat emperors. Lin Chen absorbed all of them, leaving nothing behind. Received 36 million battle chi essences, 15 million blood essence, 90,000 rune energy, 80,000 heavens path points, 80,000 talent points, 50,000 cultivation technique essences, 1,500 wind energy, 980 lightning energy, 400 dark energy, 1,400 fire energy, 490 mental energy, 500 blank attribute points. Opened 9 purple crystal treasure chests. Received. Opened 1 orange crystal treasure chest. Received. Talent combo frame. Lin Chen was dumbfounded by the horrifying value of the attribute. Mid-level battle chi essences turned into endless energy and poured into his battle chi fate wheel. Lin Chen's cultivation level began to skyrocket. Chapter 641. Lin Chen's cultivation continued to rise. He entered the late stage of the 3rd heaven without any hindrance. However, it did not stop. After entering the late stage of the 3rd heaven, Lin Chen's cultivation increased at a terrifying speed. There was no sign of it stopping. Rumble! A dazzling 9-colored light bloomed from Lin Chen's body. Not only did Lin Chen enter the late stage of the 3rd heaven, he also stepped into the early stage of the 4th heaven with an unstoppable momentum. The combat emperors who witnessed this all sucked in a breath of cold air. The combat emperor realm required hundreds or thousands of years of cultivation, or even longer to break through, but Lin Chen actually broke through in a few breaths' time. Lin Chen's battle chi cultivation steadily stepped into the middle stage of the 4th heaven, and then the late stage of the 4th heaven. Finally, he stopped in front of the gate of the 5th heaven, with only a thin line left. In terms of pure strength, Lin Chen had stepped into the 4,800,000 dragon power points threshold. With the help of the God Strength user talent, he had stepped into the boundary of 599,000 dragon power points. 4 levels in a row. The previous Lin Chen, who killed combat emperors like killing chickens, didn't even have such a terrifying increase in strength. Lin Chen even personally wiped out the Han family's foundation. In addition, he also killed a large number of 4th, 5th and 6th heaven combat emperors of the Han family. Yet, he only advanced from the late stage of the 2nd heaven to the middle stage of the 3rd heaven. If I use the 7th heaven transformation and all my clones, I might be able to contend with the early stage of the 8th heaven for a while. I'm only 1 step away from the 5th heaven combat emperor. If I kill 1 or 2 more 8th heaven combat emperors, I might be able to step into the 5th heaven in one go. Lin Chen was extremely excited. As long as he stepped into the 5th heaven combat emperor, he might be able to fight against the early stage of the 8th heaven combat emperor without the help of the God Slayer talent. When Lin Chen turned around, everyone in the academy looked at Lin Chen as if they had seen a ghost. Lin Chen scratched his head and smiled awkwardly but politely. Well, maybe handsome people don't have any bottlenecks in their cultivation? I just accidentally broke through. F***CK. Are you still speaking human words? Did he accidentally break through? Why don't you just go to heaven by accident? Brother Chen, be a human. Soaring from mid-stage 3rd stage to late-stage 4th stage, this breakthrough was F***king terrifying. What kind of medicine did he eat to have such an improvement? But even if he wanted to consume a pill, he still had to go through the process of refining it. This was the first time they had seen someone like Lin Chen, who had risen 4 realms in less than a quarter of an hour. As expected of the only orange-ranked academy in our academy. What a monster! Xing Zhan shook his head. This method of breaking through was too terrifying. Every time he saw it, his heart would be stimulated. Everyone looked at each other and smiled bitterly. This method of breaking through cultivation was simply mocking the results of their secluded cultivation for 10,000 years. Bai Ruoyan covered her mouth and chuckled. Her jade-green eyes were filled with tenderness. Compared to her own breakthrough, she was more willing to see Lin Chen grow. So, what should we do with these guys? Lin Chen turned around and looked at the Bai family. There were only 10 battle emperors left in the Bai family. There was only 1 8th level combat emperor and 2 7th level combat emperors left. The remaining 7 were all below the 5th level combat emperor. My lord, our loyalty to you can be seen by the sun and moon. The Bai family's old ancestor knelt down in front of Bai Ruoyan and spoke in a tearful voice. You don't have to call me lord. You know what you're doing. My Saint Fires will has no effect on you. You are not truly under my control. Bai Ruoyan's face was as cold as frost. She was once a member of the Bai family, but she had no feelings for this family that didn't hesitate to kill her. If she hadn't met Lin Chen, she would be a dying person in the desolate domain's myriad spirit city. The Bai family's old ancestor's body suddenly trembled. His expression was filled with fear and panic. Lin Chen was puzzled. What's going on, Sister Ruoyan? The spirit of the Saint Fire already knew about this problem. It just didn't reveal it on purpose. All the experts in the Alliance have submitted to me. Only the Bai family is putting on an act. Although the spirit of the Saint Fire is in their bodies, it doesn't have any effect. They are only submitting to me on the surface. In fact, they have other plans. Bai Ruoyan smiled faintly. When she looked at the Bai family, her eyes became colder and colder. No one in the spiritual state can escape from the spirit of the Saint Fire. Of course, Brother Lin Chen's mental cultivation method is an exception. Once, I was hunted down by the Bai family because I read the secret of the Bai family colluding with the ancient families of other states. Now, it seems that the Bai family is not under the control of the spirit of the Saint Fire because of the help of the other states. Bai Ruoyan's words enlightened everyone. Lin Chen clenched his fists and chuckled. Everyone from the Bai family, I believe that you are all smart people who know how to adapt to circumstances. You can decide whether you want to say it after I torture you or now. Remember, don't make the wrong choice. The Bai family's old ancestor's face twitched, and cold sweat dripped down. Old ancestor, let's admit defeat. The situation is over. Yes, old ancestor. In this situation, we can't run away. We don't even have the chance to self-destruct. Let's admit defeat. The remaining elders of the Bai family cried and howled. After struggling and thinking for a while, the old ancestor of the Bai family seemed to have aged dozens of years. Finally, he slowly opened his mouth and told the truth. When the truth was revealed, everyone including Lin Chen was stunned. At the same time, they broke out in cold sweat. It turned out that the ancient families that the Bai family colluded with in other states were none other than the Hun family of the Godly Land. The Hun family of the Godly Land went to the Bai family and claimed that the eternal saint fire of the spiritual state had shown a faint consciousness and intelligence. Even the seed of the saint fire had been implanted with its consciousness. The origin of the saint fire was trying to gather spirits and become a brand new intelligent life. The Hun family was the first to learn of this news. Then, the Hun family joined forces with the ambitious Bai family. The Hun family could help everyone in the Bai family not be controlled by the consciousness in the seed of the saint fire. They could help the Bai family search for the saint fire and help it gather intelligence and become a brand new life. The Hun family knew that they couldn't take down a state with brute force unless the true God behind them came. Otherwise, they couldn't shake the foundation of the ancient families in the spiritual state. They knew that if the saint fire was born, it would bring a devastating disaster to the spiritual state. More importantly, the consciousness of the saint fire could control all the masters in the spiritual state who had absorbed the seed of the saint fire. This meant that whoever controlled the saint fire could control all the ancient families in the spiritual state. Therefore, the Hun family had been playing tricks in the dark from the very beginning. They used the Bai family as their pawns to push the spiritual state into chaos with the spirit of the saint fire. According to the original plan, the spiritual state should have fallen under the control of the saint fire. However, Lin Chen was an anomaly. His 9 calamities of creation could eliminate the consciousness of the saint fire, which was why they couldn't take down the Heavenly Song Academy and the Yen family, which were the most difficult to deal with. The unforeseen event this time allowed the Heavenly Song Academy to summon the graduates scattered in the 9 prefectures. The talented students who had left the academy all returned and became the strength of the academy, forming a powerful force that could barely contend against the alliance. The Hun family had planned to suppress the eternal saint fire and take over the spiritual state after the saint fire controlled the spiritual state. However, Lin Chen's existence became the only variable in this major disaster. After understanding the whole story, many of the academy's powerhouses looked at Lin Chen gratefully. If it weren't for him, the spiritual state would have become the puppet of the fake god families. Chapter 642. Even Lin Chen himself felt a wave of fear, and his expression was abnormally solemn. I didn't expect that the Hun family had been plotting since the beginning. No wonder none of the powerful patriarchs were in the Hun family's headquarters. They had been following the instructions of the fake gods of the Hun family to hide in the 9 states, not letting go of any possibility of invading the 9 states. They were only one step away. The Hun family was only one step away from taking over the entire spiritual state. Who would have thought that at this most crucial step, they would encounter Lin Chen, who had appeared out of nowhere? Once they took over the spiritual state, the fake gods would be able to invade the 9 states much faster. An unprecedented sense of crisis welled up in his heart. Lin Chen felt that the hidden dangers of the 9 prefectures were far beyond his imagination. The spiritual state alone was already so dangerous. No one knew how many things the fake gods had done during the years when they coveted the 9 states and how many dangerous pawns they had set up to invade the 9 states in the dark. How many masters of the 9 states had become the fangs and claws of the fake gods. These hidden threats were all unknown. By the way, why did the eternal sacred fire come to you, Sister Ruoyan? Suddenly, Lin Chen turned to look at Bai Ruoyan curiously. She smiled sweetly and said, "Actually, the Bai family didn't expect this. I saw the confidential information of the Bai family and happened to know the location where the sacred fire was born. However, I didn't know the Bai family's plan. After we parted on the Abyss Island that day, I went to investigate the ruins where the sacred fire was born. However, the spirit of the sacred fire judged my talent at first glance. It seemed to think that I could cultivate to the Yuan Venerate level in a short time without absorbing the seed of the sacred fire. Therefore, it dragged me into the sacred fire realm, suppressed my will, and took over my memories." Bai Ruoyan still had some lingering fear when she recalled this. At that time, she really thought that she was going to die. "We have told you everything that we should. We are also a part of the spiritual state. Killing us won't do you much good." The Bai family patriarch's body trembled. When he begged for mercy, he was full of fear. However, the moment he lowered his head, he revealed a crazy and ferocious expression. "As long as we can leave the sacred fire realm, we still have a chance. When the Hun family gathers its strength and regroup, the Bai family will still have a chance." Suddenly, Bai Ruoyan sneered. "Although the will of the sacred fire is useless in your body, I can still feel your killing intent. Old ancestor, you won't have a chance. Give up. Of course, I won't kill you, but I will make you a part of the spiritual state." Bai Ruoyan waved her sleeves, and a white sacred fire altar slowly descended from the sky. White flames 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 white flames flames Chi. Cheese, SSSSS, S's, SS. Don't. The battle, SSS the, SSSS, S's this. TT, S's, S fire, S greetings my lord. This time, the will of the holy flame was many times larger than before, completely replacing their rationality. From now on, they would listen to Bai Ruoyan like the other big families of the spiritual state. All of their actions would be based on Bai Ruoyan's belief. This kind of behavior was even more terrifying than the brainwashing of the Hun family's fake gods. They would not hesitate to kill themselves. However, if it was during normal times, they would be the same as before. Only, in terms of their actions and ideals, they would completely obey Bai Ruoyan. When you're on holy fire level, you'll be able to unleash the full power of the holy fire. It's easy to strengthen your control. Bai Ruoyan smiled sweetly. Lin Chen sighed. The eternal holy flame was indeed miraculous. Even he did not have the chance to obtain this opportunity. Other than fusing with the sacred flame, there was no other method that could force it to be used by any living being. Bai Ruoyan's future was filled with endless possibilities. She might even be able to surpass the ancient 100 saints. Everyone sighed. The battle of the spiritual state had finally come to an end. It was just that they didn't even dare to think about this outcome. This was completely incomparable to the casualties and results they had originally anticipated. In this battle, the Academy suffered very few casualties. Only 37 people were injured and only 1 person died. On the Union's side, only 3 combat emperors died. Similarly, none of their high-end combat strength died. The only one who went to stop Xingzhan was the Supreme Elder, who was in the intermediate stage of Grade 8. He managed to avoid being killed at the last moment of Lin Chen's absolute life talent. As for the high-end combat strength, those who died were all powerhouses from the Hun family. Only the green-robed ancestor from the Union who belonged to the Murong family survived. He had participated in the battle against Lin Chen at the beginning and was severely injured. Even with Bai Ruoyan's help, he might have to rest for 10 or even dozens of years. However, overall, the combat strength of the ancient families in the spiritual state did not suffer many casualties. Those who died were all from the Bai family and the Hun family. There were also the combat emperors who stood up to resist when the holy fire controlled the ancient families. I really didn't expect this outcome even in my wildest dreams. After Shen Lianyun left the holy fire level, she sighed from the bottom of her heart. Back then, all the powerhouses in the academy were mentally prepared. Shen Lianyun even thought that perhaps less than half of them would survive. Meanwhile, in the outside world, the powerhouses who issued the summons were shocked when they saw the enemies who were fighting to the death a moment ago become partners who shook hands and made peace with each other in the next moment. However, it would be best if it could be resolved. After leaving the holy fire level and returning to the innumerable spirit sea, Lin Chun activated the Azure Dragon. With the Azure Dragon's body, he collected all the attribute light balls that were scattered in the void. These were the attribute light balls that were dropped by the enemies he killed when he activated his God Slayer talent. Although there were no growth-type attributes and the attribute light balls that were dropped were weakened, there were still a lot of them. Lin Chen's attribute points soared again. Hee everyone! Now is not the time to sigh. As his attributes soared, Lin Chen shook his head and laughed. At this moment, a beautiful figure crashed into Lin Chen's arms. When the beauty looked up at him, she was about to cry and her green eyes were shining. In the future, don't put yourself in danger again. Shangguan Bihan, who had always been reserved and gentle, took the initiative to hug Lin Chen tightly for the first time, sobbing in his arms. Yes, I promise it'll be the last time. Lin Chen stroked her soft hair and comforted her emotions. His heart was in a mess. A beauty's favor was the hardest thing to bear in the world. After a long time, Shangguan Bihan released Lin Chen's waist with a shy expression. The powerhouses around him looked at him with an "I understand" look. He blushed and coughed lightly. Then, Lin Chen pointed at the vertical black line in the void and said with a smile, "This thing is waiting for us to deal with." Only then did everyone come back to their senses from the dreamlike ending, and their expressions became serious again. "How do you plan to deal with it?" Shen Lianyun was the first to speak. Lin Chen nodded. "Fight. Fight with all your strength. Everyone's attacks will be focused on one point. First, bombard the entrance of the spatial boundary point." Everyone was dumbfounded. Fight? How could they fight? Chapter 643. In a quaint pavilion in the Divine Land. An old man with a pair of red eyebrows stepped down majestically from the sky and looked down at the Ning family below. "Have you brought her?" The middle-aged man in green robes cupped his fists and said respectfully, reporting to old ancestor Qi Shao, "We have brought her here." "Well, send her to the Hun family in half a month to participate in the true God blessing ceremony." Upon hearing this, all the higher-ups of the Ning family were shocked and bowed respectfully with cupped fists. "Thank you for your appreciation, old ancestor. Thank you for the true God's blessing." The moment the old man with red eyebrows left, an expressionless and elegant woman stood quietly behind the crowd. She was like an ethereal snow lotus, untainted by the mud. Given her fourth-level Yuan venerate strength, there was no way she could escape from the control of the people present. One day later, in the Divine Land's Far East region, in a special void dimension, several figures were sitting in a dark secret room. "Qi Shao, did you bring the Ning Qinxian you mentioned?" "Yes, our true God has already given an order. This kid is the enemy of all the true God families. We can't be careless." Everything has been arranged. We have already announced to the world that the true God blessing ceremony will be held in half a month. Doesn't this kid value friendship? I want to see if he dares to come. The old man's figure suddenly became cold and murderous. The Battle Chi life cards of Hun Zongxing and the others were all shattered. None of them came back alive. This kid's wings are fully grown. We must take advantage of this opportunity to eliminate him. If he dares to come to the Divine Land's Far East region again, I will teach him what cruelty is. This is the first time the 6 great families have joined forces. If we can't even take down a young man, we will be too ashamed to face others. Is the Jian family shameless? If he can attack the Hun family, he can naturally attack the Jian family as well. Be careful not to fail miserably. Old man Lei, why are you being so sarcastic? Alright. We haven't even started to deal with the enemy and you're already being unreasonable. Today, we are here to form an alliance, not to quarrel. The fake god family's patriarchs, who were rarely seen in the past, had all gathered together today. The Divine Land's Far East region was already a tiger's den. The situation had changed. One day ago, in the spiritual state, innumerable spirits see. Boom, boom, bang. The overwhelming battle chi surged and rushed into the entrance of the space boundary point. Endless seawater began to overflow due to the strong energy attack and splashed into the void. They transformed into tornadoes that spanned across the sky and fell into the ground. There's not enough time at all. That's right. What is Lin Chen thinking? Although our attacks are strong, at this rate, we will need at least 3 months of continuous attacks to force the seawater out. 3 months? The spiritual state would have left the 9 states long ago. Everyone was puzzled. They simply couldn't see through what Lin Chen was thinking. Could this be the method he was talking about? There's not enough water, continue, Lin Chen shouted. The powerhouses of the Alliance, the Academy, and the Alliance all attacked. More than 300 elite battle emperors had joined forces. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that such a force could destroy the heavens and earth. Bang, bang. Accompanied by 2 earth-shattering sounds, the attacks of the battle emperors were like the Milky Way hanging upside down. When they crashed into the space boundary point, a vast amount of seawater gushed out. The force was dozens of times stronger than before. Now is the time. Dragon controls the sea. Lin Chen's eyes lit up, and he let out a shout. The azure dragon beside him spread its wings and soared into the sky. It transformed into a gigantic dragon that was tens of thousands of feet long. The dragon's roar shook the void and thousands of azure light beams shot out. After refining the body of the Hun family's elder, the azure dragon had opened the 750,000th dragon vein and reached 7.5 million dragon energy points. Its pure strength was comparable to that of a mid-stage, 7th-stage combat emperor. Its true combat strength was close to that of a peak 7th-stage combat emperor. The azure light beams turned into a gigantic net that covered the sky and covered the earth. It wrapped around the boundless seawater and pulled it out. The seawater fell into the innumerable spirit sea like a waterfall. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. The seawater gushed out from the space boundary point at an extremely fast speed. It continued to flow out from the space boundary point, filling up the innumerable spirit sea. The innumerable spirit sea that had been dried up for a long time started to fill up again. This time, the seawater didn't shrink back. Instead, it continued to flow out, shocking everyone. It was as if someone had turned on the faucet. Because of the azure dragon's breath, the space boundary point was constantly spraying out the seawater that was hidden inside. This dragon, could it be the king of the water element in the dragon race, the heavenly Ing dragon? That can't be right. The heavenly Ing dragon doesn't look like this. Isn't this the azure dragon? But it can't be wrong. Only the Ing dragon, the king of the water, can control such a large area of the sea. Everyone was overjoyed. It turned out that Lin Chen wanted to use the attacks of the battle emperors to blow up the seawater inside the space boundary point. Then, he would use the Ing dragon's divine ability to control the seawater flow. The seawater has started to flow out. It won't take long for the innumerable spirit sea to be filled up. Everyone, when the time comes, we will proceed according to the original plan. Lin Chen's expression was solemn. Things weren't that simple. From now on, the frequency of the energy eruption from the space boundary point would continue to increase. The current Azure Dragon couldn't completely control it. After all, it was formed by more than 90% of the seawater in the spiritual state. Everyone nodded and scattered in all directions. More than 300 battle emperors turned into countless streams of light and began to retreat in all directions of the spiritual state. This time, even Ninth Realm battle emperors like Shin Lianyun and Bai Ruoyan had to act in person. Next, they had to return the seawater of the spiritual state to its original position. Otherwise, if all the seawater gushed out in one area, it would still be a major disaster for the spiritual state. Prince Lin Chen, we're here to help. At this moment, two gorgeous beauties stood beside Lin Chen. They were the inheritors of the world-suppressing sacred steel. They were the beautiful sisters. With a point of their slender fingers, jade light shone brightly and condensed into two vast, moon-like energy disks. As they spun in the sky, they shared the pressure of the Azure Dragon every time and controlled the sea currents to be more balanced. Lin Chen was overjoyed. He didn't expect such a pleasant surprise. My sister and I both cultivate the myriad water transformation spell, which is very convenient for us to control the water-type energy. It's very different from Tianyu Yinglong's ability. His sister, Shui Yueling, smiled. Lin Chen thanked them sincerely. Ladies, thank you. I don't like to owe people favors. You can double the original payment. Thank you for your help. The two girls smiled at each other and focused on assisting the Azure Dragon. One day later, the innumerable spirit sea was completely filled, and seawater gushed out continuously. Azure Dragon, break! Lin Chen yelled in a deep voice. The Azure Dragon roared, and a huge blue net wrapped around the endless seawater and flew to the other side of the sky. Rumble! A transparent spatial barrier channel began to appear in the void, and the seawater began to pour in from the void. The masters who were summoned here were amazed. The endless seawater formed water pillars that stretched across the sky. Under the spatial barrier set up by the Battle Emperor Realm Masters, the water pillars were directed to the original locations of the spiritual state's oceans in an orderly manner. Chapter 644. This was Lin Chen's plan. He would use the Heavenly Imperial Ocean to control the ocean and use a large number of battle emperors to set up spatial barriers to divert the water flow. Finally, the ocean of the spiritual state would return to its original position. This way, he could minimize the troubles and disasters. With the Azure Dragon diverting the water flow, the tilt of the spiritual state slowly returned to normal. Phew! Everything is fine now. Next, I just need to control the flow of the water step by step, and everything should be fine. Lin Chen let out a sigh of relief. The water would erupt from the spatial boundary point more violently, but as long as he could control it, there shouldn't be any problems. Plus, he had the help of two super geniuses who were good at controlling water energy. It's time to pay for the elixirs. Lin Chen turned around and looked at the masters who came to help him with a faint smile. Everyone, please hand over the elixir recipes and ingredients you need. Lin Chen's words made many powerhouses fall into ecstasy. However, they both loved and hated it because this time, Lin Chen didn't give them a chance to fight with their lives on the line. Their role was only to cover the civilians of the spiritual state as they retreated and to hold back a group of high-level battle emperors. Lin Chen was the one who killed the enemies and changed the overall situation. The 30 battle emperors handed over the elixir recipes and ingredients they prepared in advance to Lin Chen. In the end, only 5 of the 9 super geniuses needed Lin Chen's payment. 2 of them left after the battle without asking for any payment. They did whatever they wanted. Some of the geniuses came to help Lin Chen purely because they were interested in him, not because of the elixirs. The personalities of these super geniuses were unpredictable. They would rather have Lin Chen owe them a favor than let him make elixirs. Maybe they would have a chance to use it in the future. Lin Chen could only shake his head and laugh at this. Lin Chen, once the elixir is done, you can put it in the Yang mansion. We are not in a hurry. None of them were insensible people, so they naturally wouldn't urge Lin Chen. Refining a high-grade medicinal pill wasn't something that could be done overnight. Their lifespans were long, so waiting a few years was still possible. Lin Chen shook his head and laughed, but he didn't say anything. These powerhouses cupped their fists and bid farewell, then left. Next, Lin Chen activated the system. System, I want to learn these pill formulas. Target 35 pill formulas, ranging from low-grade rank 7 mid-grade to top-grade rank 7 high-grade. Learning all of them will consume 2.95 million cultivation method essence. When requesting an alchemist to refine medicinal pills, the pill formulas were all provided by the other party. This time, Lin Chen was equivalent to directly harvesting 35 different pill formulas with different effects. And the medicinal herbs they prepared were usually between 2 to 3 sets of the pill formula's requirements. Lin Chen wasn't anxious about the matter of medicinal ingredients. As long as he didn't skip ranks to refine pills, his alchemy skills could guarantee a success rate of more than 70%. Within 2 days, Lin Chen learned all 35 pill recipes and officially started refining medicine. His main body and 4 doppelgangers were like fish in water during the refining process. However, something unexpected happened on the 5th day of Lin Chen's refining. Mr. Lin Chen, I've finally found you. A valiant and beautiful figure rushed to the vicinity of the 10,000 Spirit Sea, panting and looking pale. This beautiful figure was Luo Qingyu's younger sister, Luo Wei-er, whom he hadn't seen in a long time. Miss Wei-er, why are you here? Lin Chen was curious, so his main body stopped refining and let his doppelgangers take over. Something big has happened. Miss Yan Qianyun found my sister and specially asked someone to send me to the spiritual state at the fastest speed, asking me to tell you this news. Luo Wei-er handed a letter to Lin Chen. When he opened it, his expression changed abruptly. The content was very simple. The true God's blessing ceremony in the Far East region of the Divine Land was about to begin again, and the person receiving the blessing was Ning Qingxian of the Ning family of the spiritual state. Long before Lin Chen returned to the spiritual state, Ning Qingxian had been taken away by the Ning family in advance. Moreover, all the higher-ups were transferred. This was also the reason why Lin Chen didn't find any trace of the Ning family after he returned to the spiritual state. However, before the battle, Lin Chen didn't have time to look for Ning Qingxian. He didn't expect to receive news about Ning Qingxian as soon as the battle ended. Big brother Lin Chen, are you sure you want to go? Luo Wei-er asked worriedly. Our Luo Manor investigated the news overnight. It said that the Han family in the Far East region of the Divine Land and the 5 major families of the True God families have all joined forces. This blessing ceremony seems to be a trap to lure you into. Hearing this, the expressions of the remaining super prodigies changed abruptly. A trap? That's right, this blessing ceremony was used to lure Lin Chen out. As long as he dared to appear in the Divine Land, the masters he would face would be all the fake god families. Even the Divine Land and other ancient worlds wouldn't dare to interfere. This was a dead end. If Lin Chen appeared, he would die. Mr. Lin Chen, you mustn't go. This is not a trivial matter. The white-clothed young master immediately stopped Lin Chen, and even the indifferent gray-clothed swordsman spoke up. The top combat power of the 6 fake god families combined is comparable to any major state. The masked woman turned to Lin Chen with a solemn expression. If you go, you will die. Facing everyone's obstruction, Lin Chen resolutely said in a deep voice. I, Lin Chen, have things to do and things not to do. I won't easily change what I have decided to do. Since I promised her, I will definitely take her out of the Ning family. Whether it is a mountain of swords or a sea of fire, I will go. Lin Chen's eyes were filled with the desire to fight. He wasn't someone who would submit to humiliation. Moreover, he knew very well how cruel and inhumane the blessing ceremony was. Prince Lin Chen, this is not a joke. No matter how great your potential is, you can't defeat the 6 fake god families. The scale of the battle is even greater than the battle of the spiritual state. The white-clothed young master tried to persuade him, but Lin Chen shook his head. Prince Lin Chen, should we take the seniors and Sister Ruoyan with us? Yang Qing'er walked up and asked worriedly. Lin Chen frowned. No. This is the most critical moment, and the more people we have, the better. The spiritual state hasn't fully recovered yet. If we evacuate now, the tilt won't be adjusted. If the spiritual state leaves the 9 states, the consequences will be unimaginable. I can't risk the fate of the entire spiritual state. Lin Chen had no choice in this battle. He had to go to the easternmost region of the divine land alone. Hearing this, the expressions of the 3 super geniuses changed. Going to the easternmost region of the divine land alone to fight the 6 fake god families? Was this guy crazy? Looking at Shangguan Bihan's eyes, Lin Chen felt a bit apologetic. In her worried eyes, there was not only blame but also helplessness. I have one last use of the Godslayer talent. Besides, if the 6 fake god families work together, I can perfectly use the Godslayer talent to an unprecedented level. I may have a chance alone. Chapter 645. After making up his mind, Lin Chen said gratefully to Luo Wei, thank you for informing me. Luo Wei, shook her head. It's nothing, but do you really want to go? Lin Chen nodded and turned to look at Yang Qing'er. Miss Qing'er, I'll have to trouble you to bring the elixir refined by my clone back to the Yang mansion. Yang Qing'er's expression was complicated as she nodded seriously. Yes, I will. Flapping his purple phoenix wings, Lin Chen pulled Luo Wei and turned into a streak of light, disappearing from everyone's sight. The white-clothed young master and the others wanted to stop them, but they were powerless. They could only watch as Lin Chen left, feeling shocked and regretful. Lin Chen might not be able to come back this time. The power of the 6 aristocratic families far exceeded the scale of the spiritual state's civil war, not to mention that Lin Chen was only one person. Is the glimmer of hope that was born in the 9 states going to disappear here? The purple-robed woman muttered to herself. She then activated her arithmetic, and shook her head with a bitter smile. I can't see through him. This person's fate is still empty. It's as if his fate doesn't exist in this world. Lin Chen activated the ultimate moment and 5-fold transformation and rushed with Luo Wei at full speed. In less than 4 hours, they crossed from the spiritual state to the Tianzhou region. After arriving at the Tianzhou region, Luo Wei led the way and helped Lin Chen find the best spatial tunnel to the godly land. In a secret room on the spatial ship, Lin Chen and Luo Wei were alone. Even though he was anxious and worried about Ning Qingxian, Lin Chen forced himself to calm down. Considering the time, we should be able to make it. I need to hurry up and improve my strength. With a thought, Lin Chen opened the system. Heavenly Path Possession System version 5. 0 host. Lin Chen cultivation. Late stage of 4th level Battle Emperor Realm. Intermediate Battle Chi Essence. 395. 83 million points. Limit. 4. 8 million Dragon Power Divine Force Users Support. 599 million. Intermediate Chi and Blood. 268. 5 million points. Intermediate Spiritual Power. 50,950 points. Early stage of the Heavenly Arrival State. Intermediate Cultivation Method Soul Essence. 12. 65 million points. Intermediate Rune Energy. 17. 66 million points. Heaven's Path Points. 15. 58 million Talent Points. 18. 55 million. Intermediate Elemental Energy. Fire 180,000 points. Earth 150,000 points. Wood 160,000 points. Metal 180,000 points. Water 210,000 points. lightning, 150,000 points; wind, 140,000 points; light, 100,000 points; and darkness, 120,000 points. Cultivation method status column, open; bloodline status column, open; passive talents. Green rank, reinforced iron bones 100%, green rank, dual cultivation acacia, blue rank, health increase 200%, blue rank, divine power 100%, blue rank, emperor slayer. Active talents. Blue rank, stealing omen; blue rank, superdimensional transportation; blue rank, fatal bloodlust; purple rank, ultimate moment; purple rank, ultimate return; purple rank, sovereign's descent. Cooldown 14 days. One-time orange rank, God Slayer X1 fragment 1/3, quasi-orange rank, absolute life and death 7 days. Special runes. Slow down level 5, penetration level 5, charge level 5, phantom level 5, talent combination skill. Fatal bloodlust, super-dimensional. Transportation, sovereign's descent. Blank attribute points. 19,660 points, can be converted to any attribute points at will. Treasures points. System, I want to use the latest talent column to register the absolute life and death talent. When Lin Chun had killed the Han family's patriarch, he had obtained a new talent column from an orange crystal treasure chest. Now, he wanted to register the absolute life and death talent column. Registration complete. The host's talent combination skill is Fatal Bloodlust, Super-Dimensional Transportation, Sovereign's Descent, Absolute Life and Death. Lin Chen's attitude toward the talent registration this time was obvious. The next battle would be more difficult than any previous battle. If he wanted to maximize his strength, he could only rely on the absolute life and death talent. System, integrate all the cultivation techniques that I have now. Also, add 3 million mid-level cultivation technique soul essences and integrate them together. Host currently has 54 types of low-level purple cultivation techniques, 29 types of mid-level and above purple cultivation techniques, 4 types of high-level low-level purple cultivation techniques, and 1 type of high-level mid-level purple cultivation technique. Integrating all of them will consume 560,000 Heaven's Path Point. Beginning integration. Lin Chen was looking forward to it. He didn't plan to let go of any chance to increase his strength. These cultivation techniques, or the spoils of war from the Han family's experts who died in battle and the fallen by family's experts, as well as the cultivation techniques obtained from the dropped cultivation technique attribute light balls, were all gathered together for integration. Boom. Ding. The system's fusion furnace jumped, and Lin Chen was filled with anticipation. Any of the combat techniques that were high-level purple cultivation techniques and above could increase his combat strength. The high-level purple cultivation techniques that he integrated were almost all offensive combat technique. This time, it should at least be a high-level purple cultivation technique, right? Integration successful. Host has received the high-level purple cultivation technique, Infinite Dark Step. 1 step in darkness, 1 step in shuttle. Infinite dark steps, infinite shuttle. Lin Chen was stunned in the secret chamber. A high-level purple cultivation technique? Lin Chen's heart trembled. A mid-level purple cultivation technique was already the best in Jiuzhou. Perhaps only a few aristocratic families still had 1 or 2 mid-level purple cultivation technique. A high-level purple cultivation technique might only exist in the legacy of the world-suppressing sacred tablet. As for a high-level purple cultivation technique, it was impossible for a cultivation technique of this level to exist. If it wasn't for the fact that Lin Chun had collected so many purple cultivation techniques, all of which were the best of the best, in addition to the 3 million cultivation technique soul essences, he might not have been able to integrate such a cultivation technique. The strongest cultivation technique. Without a doubt, this is the strongest cultivation technique in the Jiuzhou continent. Lin Chen, who was so excited that he almost jumped up, hurriedly issued the command. System, I want to learn infinite dark steps. Prompt. According to the host's current mid-level cultivation technique Soul Essences, the host can only learn infinite dark steps to 30% proficiency. Are you sure you want to learn it? Hiss. Lin Chen sucked in a breath of cold air. He still had more than 9 million mid-level cultivation technique Soul Essences. It was only enough to learn 30%? A high-level purple cultivation technique was indeed powerful. Yes, learn infinite dark steps. After the command was issued, the memories were integrated. Lin Chen entered a state of seclusion. Looking at the side of Lin Chen's face, Luo Wei-er, who was in the secret chamber, was absent-minded. Her heart throbbed slightly. He really did not hesitate to break into the 6 true god families alone. What kind of courage was this? In the current Jiuzhou, no one below the Saint Realm could do it. No one dared to do it. This time, he might not be able to return. I really envy that Miss Ning Qingxian. She can make you so persistent, Luo Wei-er murmured softly. She stretched out her jade-like hand and secretly touched Lin Chen's face. Her green eyes dimmed, and she retreated to the side, not daring to disturb him. Time flew. After Lin Chen had integrated the memories of infinite dark steps, his heart was filled with amazement and shock. Infinite dark steps. The best way to circulate dark battle chi was to distort space. Using this characteristic, one could achieve extreme speed across space. At the same time, using the characteristic of dark battle chi, every step one took could cause the space around him to distort like a whirlpool. Any living thing that came close to him would be trapped in the distorted space, thus affecting the battle situation. What a terrifying cultivation technique! If I use this cultivation technique in close combat, it will be impossible for the opponent to guard against it. Moreover, in terms of speed, with only 30% proficiency, it is more than 4 times faster than the low-level purple cultivation technique Moonlight Mist Shadow. Chapter 646. Lin Chen could not imagine how fast his speed would be once he reached 100% completion. However, the more powerful the movement technique was, the more energy it would consume. This infinite dark steps was only suitable for critical moments. With this movement technique, Lin Chen was like a tiger that had grown wings. His combat strength had increased by several folds. One of the 9 states, the Nether State. A black-robed figure stood proudly above the lifeless giant gate. The black-robed figure retracted his gaze from the endless void and muttered to himself. Lin Chen of the Spirit State. I didn't expect him to step into the War Emperor realm from the Yuan Venerate realm in just 1 year. He can even kill a 9th-level War Emperor. This person is worth nurturing and becoming the successor of my race. The black-robed figure revealed a rare smile. With a wave of his sleeve, the lifeless gate that no one had dared to break through for 100,000 years exploded. Who dares to break into my nether prison sacred ground? This is the resting place of the Nether Saint. No. Your aura belongs to the demonic race. When the 2 majestic figures appeared, their expressions changed drastically. Ha! A puny Nether Saint dares to be presumptuous in front of me. Nether Saint, hand over the head of the heavenly wings of the demonic race, and I will spare your life. The black-robed figure shouted coldly, shaking the entire deathly silent gate. The space collapsed and the light distorted. 7 days later, in the Han family's territory in the Divine Prefecture's Far East region, countless people were cheering. After more than a month, the True God Mountain had been repaired and the great True God had once again descended upon the Divine Prefecture. And today there was another beautiful woman who was fortunate enough to receive the true deity's care, sending down his blessings and praying for all living beings. Such a grand event attracted countless experts to gather in the Divine Prefecture's Far East region again. The number of experts gathered this time was far more than the previous time. This was because most of the experts had received news from their spies that this time, the plan was to target the legendary evildoer, Lin Chen. If he dared to come, he would be courting death. Although the possibility of him coming was not high, they had heard that he had split the sacred mountain, destroyed the ceremony, and attacked the Han family's headquarters. No one wanted to miss this shocking event. Therefore, apart from the fake god families, many top experts of the Divine Prefecture were paying attention to this grand event. In the restaurant, many hidden experts of the Divine Prefecture had gathered. What a disgusting interest! They're still continuing this so-called ritual after so many years. A charming upper-class woman sitting in the middle of a restaurant did not hide her disgust towards the ceremony. "Shoo, fox sister, be careful with your words." "Careful my ass." This old lady was hoping that the little fellow would come and cause trouble again. If he didn't come, this old lady would look down on him. His moral integrity is not like you, who only know how to be a coward all day long. He dared to split this godforsaken mountain at such a young age. If this old lady was a few tens of thousands of years younger, she would definitely pursue this brat. The charming lady glanced at the few old men and middle-aged men beside her, not bothering to hide the disdain in her eyes. The latter could only smile bitterly. At the same time, another white-haired old man sitting at the edge of the restaurant clicked his tongue in wonder. Hee, I didn't expect to see such a lineup on my first visit to the Divine Land. With his cultivation, there were at least dozens of auras that could attract his attention. Furthermore, each of them was stronger than the last. They were all top-notch experts from the fake deity families. "Senior Ian, do you think that kid will come?" the few young men in front of the white-haired old man asked curiously. Before the white-haired old man could answer, a young man sneered in disdain. "He wouldn't dare. If he dares to come, this old man will King eat all the chairs and tables here." The one who spoke was Mo Zixiao, who was almost crippled by Lin Chen. The two geniuses in front of the white-haired old man immediately frowned and stood up abruptly, their faces filled with anger. "What? You don't want to accept this? I am from the Mo family. Don't you dare touch me!" Mo Zixiao sneered. The white-haired old man raised his hand, indicating for the two to calm down. He then looked at Mo Zixiao calmly. "Young man, don't be so full of yourself. This kind of thing, no one can be certain." The last word, freeze, turned into a boundless spiritual storm that swept towards Mo Zixiao. He froze on the spot. In less than 2 breaths, he started foaming at the mouth. "Young Master Zixiao." A Battle Emperor's servant hurried over to help Mo Zixiao up. Just as he was about to scold him, his pupils trembled. This white-haired old man's strength was terrifying. Extremely terrifying. Perhaps only the old ancestor of the Mo family could be compared to him. The two young men were also extremely monstrous. They were not more than 2,000 years old, but they were already battle emperors. "You, who are you?" The old servant swallowed his saliva and asked in a trembling voice. The white-haired old man sipped his tea leisurely and pointed his finger towards the sky. "We are from above." At the top of the 2 buildings, a group of people stood proudly. There were both men and women. Some were young and beautiful, some were extraordinarily handsome, as if they were immortals living in the palace. Some were like monarchs that had descended, and they emanated a dignified aura without being angry. Moreover, the space between their brows emanated an aura of wisdom. Some were extraordinary, otherworldly, and gorgeous. There were even some that actually only had a single eye, and its pupil flowed with a brilliance that could pierce through space and time. Is this the 9 provinces continent? I didn't expect it to be so dilapidated. The young man in green carried a sword on his back. He was charming, but he couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. I didn't expect the Heaven's Sword Palace to come as well. The purple gauze was like a painting, and the beauty was slim and elegant, surpassing the clear water and autumn cold. She was like a light breeze in late autumn. This is a genius that has alarmed the sacred boundary. His talent might even surpass us. The young master holding the fan smiled lightly, but there was a sense of arrogance between his brows. The green-clothed girl who was sitting with her legs crossed mischievously muttered, "Tisk, surpassing you guys? How could it be that simple? You guys just want to use the name of the sex emissary to come down and play. A few criminals from the sacred prison actually dares to act like a tyrant in the mortal world and call themselves true gods?" The middle-aged man with a saber on his waist sneered. The young man with lightning hair glanced at him and said indifferently, "Don't cause trouble. Don't forget our mission this time. Don't alarm them. Rely on your own ability. If you can recruit a genius, then do it. If you can't, then don't cause any trouble. These guys are related to the demon race. If we provoke them, it might cause trouble for the sex behind us." These extraordinary figures were the emissaries sent by the sects of the sacred boundary that had been alarmed by Lin Chen's coronation. They had originally come to the divine prefecture and didn't know the person they were looking for. However, the legends of Lin Chen came one after another, each more terrifying than the last. This made them completely lock onto their target. The genius they were looking for was this kid. But now, they didn't want Lin Chen to go to the divine prefecture, because they had received orders not to interfere with the power struggle in the 9 provinces, and they couldn't offend the criminals who had escaped from the sacred prison. This was because they were inextricably linked to the demon race behind them. Once, there was a demon race expert whose strength was unparalleled in the world, who had infiltrated the sacred boundary's 19 layers of the sacred prison and opened it. Chapter 647. The Devil Cultivator Rancor chose the most vicious, brutal, and powerful prisoners from the sacred prison and took them away. He also released countless prisoners from the sacred prison. Until today, the sacred boundary was still wary of what happened that day and the demon-human expert who sneaked into the holy prison. Then, the blessing ceremony will begin now. The purple-robed beauty frowned slightly. Obviously, she was also against this ceremony. The so-called true God's blessing was just to satisfy the hobbies of the prisoners in the holy prison. There was no such thing as the blessing of the true God. It was just to fool the world. A palanquin appeared from the void and was carried towards the restored true God mountain. Wah! The whole place was boiling with excitement. Hundreds of millions of fake God believers were cheering in the crowd. Inside the palanquin, Ning Qingxian was wearing a long dress and a star crown. She looked elegant and refined. Her expression was calm, as if she had already expected her ending. "To be able to meet you, my short life has seen the light of dawn. Lin Chen, please don't come." Ning Qingxian slowly closed her eyes. 2 lines of tears silently flowed down from the corner of her eyes. She was very clear that the Hun family had set up a powerful formation here. No matter how strong Lin Chen was, he was just a young man who was a few years younger than her. This was an inescapable trap. How could he break through? Ning Qingxian prayed that Lin Chen would not come. But in the depths of her heart, Ning Qingxian had a last glimmer of hope. This kind of contradictory feeling and thought, even she herself did not understand. Outside the palanquin, on an ancient bridge, a young girl was chasing after her elder sister but was stopped. "Let me go! Let me go!" The young girl in green resisted stubbornly. Tears glistened in the corner of her eyes. "Miss Ning Qingxue, the head of the family has ordered you not to cross the boundary." 2 elders of the Ning family stopped her expressionlessly. They even released a strand of battle qi to suppress Ning Qingxue. You. Why? Are you all crazy? All of you are crazy. How is this a blessing ceremony? This is clearly taking my elder sister's life. Ning Qingxue's eyes were filled with tears as she kept shouting. The 2 elders said indifferently, "Miss Qingxue, you're still young. There are some things you don't understand. This is the ceremony of true God's blessing. Miss Qing Xian is blessed by true God. It's our Ning family's good fortune. The two elders only knew that this was the order of the patriarch. Moreover, once this matter was completed, their entire Ning family would rise to the heavens. Ning Qingshua's eyes were red and her voice was hoarse. I don't understand? All I know is that you've become my lackeys. Upon hearing that, the believers of the false god around Ning Qingxue all turned their heads to look at Ning Qingxue. Their eyes were gloomy, which shocked the two elders. Forget it. Miss Qingxue, there are some things that you're still young and don't understand. One of the elders did not say a word and took Ning Qingxue away by force. On the peak of a mountain, a combat emperor clenched his fists and roared at the head of the Ning family. Why are you doing this to my daughter? It's not like we don't have a choice. We've done our best for the Ning family. Why are you doing this to us? Didn't you promise us that Qing Xian could make her own choice as long as we make enough contributions to the Ning family? The beautiful woman in a simple dress stood beside the man in green. She gritted her teeth and questioned the head of the Ning family, Ning Yuntian. Choice? The Ning family doesn't need a choice. Are you talking about that kid in the spiritual state? Ning Yuntian sneered and turned to the two of them. Do you really think that little brat can go against the great Lord True God? Moreover, your daughter is blessed by the true God. She will also thank the true God from the bottom of her heart. Thank you, my ass. Ning Yuntian, are you still a human? Can't you see how badly my daughter cried before? Look at her. She doesn't look happy at all. The man in green grabbed Ning Yuntian's clothes and roared at the palanquin with red eyes. Our family has made great contributions to the Ning family since we were born. Why can't our daughter have the freedom of the Ning family? Ning Yuntian, is this why you're the head of the Ning family? Boom! Ning Yuntian released his cultivation and suppressed the man in green. The elders behind Ning Yuntian pressed their palms down, and the couple was suppressed to the ground. Ning Yuntian, being a dog won't end well. The man in green roared. Being a dog for God is better than being a human. Ning Yuntian lifted his collar and sneered. You two shameless trash. Take them away from me. After this, I will directly cripple their cultivation so that they won't be a threat to my Ning family in the future. After today, my Ning family will usher in a new revolution. Ning Yuntian waved his sleeve, and the beautiful woman in a simple dress sobbed. Qing Xian, I'm sorry. In the endless void, several figures stood in the air. Humph, he hasn't shown up yet. It seems that this kid is also a cunning person. He wants to kill this little girl. With such a big formation, the news will spread like wildfire. Of course, he won't dare to show up. If we work together, 1 or 2 late-stage 9th-level combat emperors will die here, not to mention a young kid. Let's wait until the end. If that kid doesn't show up after this girl dies, we will have to plan how to attack the spiritual state. The palanquin stopped in front of the True God Mountain. An elegant woman in a long robe walked out slowly, which surprised many of the fake god's servants. In the past, the women who received the blessing ceremony were either nervous, or ran away, or cried. However, it was the first time they saw someone as calm as this woman. When the creepy iron coffin was pushed out, the whole crowd cheered. A man in a yellow robe who belonged to the fake god's servants slowly stood up and announced to the crowd in front of the godly mountain square. Everyone, today the blessings of the true God will come to the world. Let us sincerely bless this lucky person. The seething sea of people quieted down in an instant. Everyone had a sincere look on their faces as they put their palms together and sincerely prayed for the true God. He didn't come. Ning Qingxian looked around subconsciously. Seeing that there was no anomaly, she felt relieved. However, she didn't know why, but a sad sense of loss emerged in her heart. Outside the godly mountain square, the faces of the messengers of the sacred boundary sects, who stood proudly on top of the pavilions, suddenly changed. Their eyes were fixed on the true God Mountain. In front of the true God mountain, the moment the prayer ceremony ended, billions of fake God's servants opened their eyes. What entered everyone's eyes was a silver robe that fluttered in the wind. It appeared in front of the blessing ceremony without any warning. Ning Qingxian suddenly turned around and saw the familiar face of the young man walking towards her with his usual smile. She instantly froze on the spot. "Who are you? How dare you offend the great true God's blessing ceremony?" The fake God's servants shouted angrily, trying to use their battle chi to take down the young man. The young man's laughter was like rolling thunder, echoing in the sky of the Han family's territory. "I'm Lin Chen. What do you want?" Chapter 648. The messengers of the sects at the sacred boundary couldn't help but be shocked. How is this possible? How did he escape our detection and enter this place without leaving a trace? Could it be a space jump technique? A 21-year-old 4th-level combat emperor. It's really him. Lin Chen of the spiritual state. He's the young man we're looking for. He really came. No one expected that this young man would appear in such a way. On the ritual platform of the True God Mountain, many pseudo-gods people were dumbfounded. It was Lin Chen again. Lin Chen waved his hand and removed Ning Qingshuan's battle chi seal. At this moment, the elegant and indifferent Ning Qingxian could no longer suppress the emotions in her heart. She took off her crown and threw herself at Lin Chen without caring about anything else. Her voice was filled with tears, but she could not hide her joy. "You're so silly. Why did you come? Do you know how many people here want to kill you? There are too many people who want to kill me. I don't lack these guys. But there's only one Miss Ning Qingxian, isn't there?" After smashing the pseudo-god's servant who wanted to sneak attack him, Lin Chen patted Ning Qingshuan's shoulder and said, "Don't worry. I'm a man of my word. Today, no matter how many people there are in the pseudo-god's family, I'll take you away when I say I'll set you free." "Okay." Ning Qingxian was so happy that she cried and nodded happily. At this moment, as long as she could live and die with Lin Chen, she didn't care about anything else. "It's Lin Chen. He's really here. He's here to pick up Sister Qingxian." Ning Qingxue, who was taken away, was shocked. Her pretty face was filled with ecstasy as she shouted desperately, "Brother Lin Chen, you can do it!" Rumble! 6 overwhelming auras appeared in the sky, and the 6 blood chi arrows were shot towards Lin Chen in the blink of an eye. 7 changes. Ultimate moment. Lin Chen's aura suddenly soared, and he temporarily stepped into the middle stage of the 6th stage. His purple phoenix wings spread out behind him as he embraced Ning Qingxian in his arms. Dark calamity battle chi flowed as he took a few steps forward. It was as if he was stepping on the stars, twisting time and space. Shwa! 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 Lin Chen's figure flashed through the void. Every step he took was extremely fast. A black vortex spun beneath his feet, twisting space. Without any warning, he spun several times, crossing 20,000 miles with each step. The battle chi arrow followed closely behind, locking onto Lin Chen's spiritual aura. 8 desolate finger! 8 desolate finger! Lin Chen pointed his finger and activated 2 offensive runes. Draconic force condensed into a dragon-shaped energy. 8 types of desolate era energy pierced through the void, converging into a finger of energy that instantly destroyed the pursuing battle chi arrows. TSK. Bang! 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 A series of explosions resounded through the sky. 5 blood arrows were destroyed, but one of them pierced through Lin Chen's left leg, causing blood to splatter everywhere. Lin Chen frowned and used the wood spirit essence technique to heal himself. Something's not right. The blood arrow is merging into my body. Lin Chen's expression froze. The battle chi arrow merged into his body, and even his spiritual aura was tightly locked onto. Consumed 300,000 talent points, accelerating the recovery of the super-dimensional teleportation cooldown. Estimated time required, 25 minutes. The moment the system screen popped up, the aura of high-level combat emperors swept across the sky. A sea of combat emperors appeared, and there were more than 400 of them. What an exquisite and profound movement skill. It's actually a first-class movement skill in our sword palace. His mental cultivation technique is very strong. Just by using it slightly, there are signs of 9 types of battle chi transforming into battle physique. Even our sect doesn't have this kind of mental cultivation technique. From the late stage of the 4th stage to the middle stage of the 6th stage, it's a top-grade secret technique. This kid is full of secrets. It's too magical. All the messengers of the sacred boundary couldn't help but exclaim. Their foundation was incomparable to the 9 continents' combat emperors. They could see that Lin Chen's foundation was not something they could compare to. What should we do? Should we secretly save this kid? After using the secret technique, this kid is only at the middle stage of the 6th stage. There are so many 7th and 8th stage combat emperors here. Even the little guys from our sect won't be able to deal with them, let alone the 29th stage combat emperors. Let's wait and see. This kid's level is definitely not comparable to the little guys from our sect. Otherwise, we wouldn't have come here personally. Let's see what other trump cards he has. We can't do it secretly either. Have you forgotten the instructions from the palace? Just as the envoys of the holy world were in a heated argument, 6 figures appeared in the sky. Wang family Wang Wushuang, Jian family Jian Yin, Mo family Mo Ling, Long family Long Can, Lei family Lei Xiao, Hun family Hun Qi Xiao. They were the old ancestors of the 6 fake god families. They were all true experts at the late stage of the 9th stage. Each of them was an invincible figure. They were old monsters that had lived for thousands of years. Countless people of the fake god families had placed their hopes on these 6 people. They were the old ancestors of the true gods. If they took action, this criminal who offended the true gods would definitely die. Lin Chen, I didn't expect you to come. The red-browed old man, Hun Qi Xiao, sneered. His eyes were fixed on Lin Chen, who was tens of thousands of miles away. This kid has been hit by our battle chi bloodmark arrow. He won't be able to escape. This time, let him fall in the divine continent. A one-armed old man sneered. Jian family's old ancestor, Jian Yin. The green sword on his back was unsheathed. It was a 7th-grade sword, azure cloud sky splitting sword. Lei family surround this kid. The true god of the Lei family has ordered us to judge him. Kill him at all costs. Lei Xiao, the old ancestor of the Lei family, suddenly shouted. His voice was like a thunderclap that shook tens of thousands of miles. Behind the 6 old ancestors, 2 to 3 figures stepped out. They were the supreme elders of the fake god families. One of them was at the middle stage of the 9th stage, and the other one was at the early stage of the 9th stage combat emperor. Even though Hun Zongsheng and the others had died, the Hun family was still the strongest. There were a total of 15 9th-level combat emperors on the scene. It was a lineup that could make anyone despair. Not to mention the large group of 7th-stage combat emperors and dozens of 8th-stage combat emperors. They had really turned out in full force. The 6 fake god families only had one order, which was to kill Lin Chen at all costs. They knew that Lin Chen had a strange teleportation technique. Therefore, from the very beginning, the 6 of them worked together to shoot out the soul-locking blood arrow. Now that Lin Chen had their mark on him, no matter where he escaped to in the 9 prefectures, he would be discovered by the fake god family. Lin Chen faced the experts present without fear. He looked straight at the 6 old ancestors. Hugging the beauty in his arms, he channeled the energy of the 3 inches calamity into her body to protect her tightly. The pressure was terrifying. If he didn't have the God Slayer innate skill, any 1 or 2 8th-stage combat emperors would be able to threaten Lin Chen, let alone 15 9th-stage combat emperors. This lineup was truly terrifying. You guys are indeed strong enough. However, no one can stop me if I want to leave today. Lin Chen smiled coldly. He connected his mind to the system and sent out an order. System, activate the God Slayer innate skill. The God Slayer innate skill can detect those who are hostile to the host. 413 Combat Emperors and 15 9th Stage Combat Emperors. The God Slayer innate skill has been activated. Chapter 649. Bang! Rumble! Battle chi swept across the sky, and the clouds within 1,000,000 miles were torn apart by the soaring 9-colored battle chi. An unprecedented aura exploded out from Lin Chen's body. His pure strength turned into endless dragon-shaped energy that wandered in the sky. It was as if millions of dragons were dancing in the sky. His mental strength covered the sky and earth, overlooking the 8 desolates. He could move mountains, overturn seas, and crush stars with a single thought. It was as if a vast and deep galaxy was hanging upside down. It shook the minds of all the experts present and caused their fighting spirit to collapse. His battle chi turned into 9 pillars of heavenly tribulation light that spun like a wheel. His chi soared into the sky. Every time the 9-colored battle chi wheel spun, a majestic heavenly tribulation would descend. It was as if a catastrophe had descended upon the divine prefecture. 10 times, 100 times, 300 times, 500 times, 1,000 times, 2,000 times. Lin Chen's strength was like a dragon that soared into the sky, soaring in a straight line. Everyone was stunned. All the experts present had their mouths wide open and stood rooted to the ground in shock. The scene before their eyes had completely subverted their understanding. Even the envoys of the sacred boundary were no exception. He broke through the limit of the 9th layer Combat Emperor. He broke through from the 6th layer Combat Emperor to the 9th layer Combat Emperor. Oh my god! What kind of F***king skill is this? I don't know. I didn't see any traces of him circulating his skill. It seems like a powerful and boundless energy suddenly burst out from his body. Could he be a god's son? The envoys of the sacred boundary sucked in a cold breath. They were completely confused. Bang! The slightly released battle chi broke the earth veins and cracked open a bottomless abyss. A wave of mental strength swept out and shattered the true God mountain. The dragon-shaped energy that was like a transparent giant dragon intimidated the crowd. Just its aura alone was enough to repel countless combat emperors. Lin Chen held Ning Qinxian with one hand and suddenly pointed at the sky. He activated the 8 desolation finger. 3 8-colored energy fingers pierced through the sky and pointed at the 6 ancestors with a majestic aura. Not good. Hun Qixiao's expression changed. He suddenly pointed his finger backward and a giant flaming finger that was burning with scarlet flames rolled over. Chi. Bang. The 8-colored chaotic energy exploded, the battle aura overflowed, and the crimson flames soared into the sky. Both sides retreated a few steps, and the old ancestors were shocked at the same time. When clashing with a junior, it was actually the people on their side who retreated. Lin Chen stood in the air, his eyes filled with excitement. From cultivation base to pure strength and spiritual power, my overall combat power has increased by 2,103 times. It's an unprecedented increase in strength, a pure strength of 9. 3 million dragon force points, an early 9th level combat emperor, and the mental strength of the great success stage of the heavenly completion realm. This time, his Godslayer talent was much more powerful than when he was in the spiritual state. Back when Lin Chen had activated his absolute life and death innate talent, he had stepped into the early 9th tier, but it had only lasted for a few seconds. But now, the Godslayer innate talent had lasted for the entire duration of the early 9th tier. not to mention the spiritual power in the great achievement of the reaching heaven state and the dragon power of over 9 million. In the whole of the 9 prefectures, there were perhaps no more than 10 people who had reached the level of mental energy at the culmination of the heavenly completion state. The combination of the 3 was perfect. Don't worry, I'll take you out of here. Lin Chen smiled at Ning Qingxian. The two of them had a tacit understanding and held hands tightly. Attack! Don't let this kid run away. Mo Ling of the Mo family shouted coldly, and the sword at his waist suddenly stabbed out. The dancing and spinning sword light was like dancing snowflakes, dazzling and enchanting. Hidden in the beautiful sword light was a deadly white light that pierced out with murderous intent. Clang! The saber was drawn out like a dragon's roar. The bright blue saber flashed out a water-moon mirror that rotated. The saber light shone, and the sword light that filled the sky was not only shattered, but also reflected all the remaining sword light toward Mo Ling. What? Mo Ling blocked the sword light with his sword. The 5 old ancestors flicked their sleeves, and when they extinguished the sword light, they stared at the saber in Lin Chen's hand with solemn expressions. The 8th level saber, Azure Moon. Even though it wasn't a complete saint artifact, even 1,000th of its power was enough to threaten them. This kid even has a saint artifact? I would like to see how much power he can unleash from the saint artifact today. Jian Yin was so angry that he laughed. His whole body was surging with battle qi, and he attacked with his sword. The sword light was like a dragon shooting out. Speed of the moon. Die. The saber light flashed and turned into a bright moon. All the old ancestors were shocked. They quickly flashed their bodies and used their divine abilities to block Lin Chen's saber attack. Lin Chen quickly retreated and used the infinite silent steps to retreat. 2 8th level combat emperors arrived with a whistling sound, and the soul-seizing hook in their hands shot toward Lin Chen. Kid, this is not a place where a 6th level combat emperor like you can rip. The faint moonlight descended, and the dragon force was surging. The saber light flashed, and the soul-seizing hook was broken. I am not a 6th level combat emperor. Lin Chen laughed coldly. The 2 8th level middle stage grand elders had looks of disbelief on their faces. The body of the combat emperor that was slashed by the saber light collapsed. There was no suspense at all. He died with his eyes wide open, and a large number of attribute light balls rolled out. If it wasn't for the God Slayer innate skill, the two of you could have stopped me. Lin Chen sneered casually and took away all the non-growth attribute light balls with lightning speed. All the combat emperors who wanted to attack froze on the spot, and their scalps went numb. They couldn't help but suck in a cold breath. Instant kill. A real instant kill. Lin Chen's strength was comparable to a 9th level combat emperor. His cultivation and mental strength were at the peak of the 9 prefectures. Not to mention the 2 offensive runes and the ultimate moment innate skill. Even the saber in his hand was a genuine 8th level saint artifact. God Slayer innate skill, full power. At this moment, those who were not 9th level combat emperors and above were courting death in front of Lin Chen. Those who stand in my way shall die. Lin Chen bellowed and charged towards the battle emperors of the aristocratic families. F***CK. All the combat emperors couldn't help but curse. We didn't stand in your way. You were the one who charged at us. Countless combat emperors retreated as if they had seen a ghost. They didn't dare to confront Lin Chen head-on. How were they supposed to fight? Those who were below the 9th level combat emperor could kill him with a single slash. If they couldn't even block a single slash, how were they supposed to stop him? Countless false gods people were caught in the crossfire. Lin Chen was unrestrained and went on a rampage. He was like a ferocious dragon. Wherever he went, it was a one-sided slaughter. Lin Chen charged and killed as he flew out of the Han family's territory. Every time a saber light appeared, a 6th level combat emperor would fall. Lin Chen was like a ferocious tiger in a flock of sheep. With a saber in his hand, he was invincible, unstoppable, unstoppable. All the false gods' believers stared blankly at the figure that flashed across thousands of miles in the void. He was like a god descending from the heavens, and no one could stop him. He can even control an 8th-level saber weapon. This kid is truly a monstrous genius. He would definitely be a top true disciple in our faction. A few Sacred Boundaries emissaries said in a trembling voice. If he could borrow the power of an 8th-level saber weapon, Lin Chun might be able to break through the encirclement alone. Huh? Something's not right. The divine essence of this saber weapon has been damaged. It's not a complete 8th-level saint weapon. It's hard to tell who will win. The white-haired old man narrowed his eyes and muttered in a low voice. A trace of greed and cruel killing intent flashed across the eyes of a few emissaries from the Sacred Boundary. An 8th-grade saint artifact was a rare and precious artifact to them. Even 107th-level saint weapons of the highest quality could barely reach 1/10 of the value of an 8th-level saint weapon. Stop this kid and activate the array. We can't keep this monstrous genius alive. Use all our resources to kill him. Hun Qishao roared. He finally knew why Hun Zongxing and the others didn't return from the spiritual state. It was all because of this kid. With such terrifying strength, none of the 6 ancestral patriarchs could stop him in a one-on-one battle. Chapter 650. A storm was brewing in the 9 states. The moment Lin Chun activated his Godslayer talent in the far east region of the Divine Prefecture, a huge change occurred in Ming State. Ming State, Qianming capital city. All the residents and experts looked up at the sky in shock. Dragons danced and covered the sky. Vast earth dragons, red lotus flame dragons, shadow-winged dragons, 10,000-year black azure dragons, and many others. Countless dragons had gathered in the capital of Ming Prefecture. Today was the day of the Divination Conference of Ming Prefecture, the most prestigious conference in the entire 9 prefectures. In the conference venue, a beauty in a black dress, as beautiful as a rose blooming in the dark night, frowned as she looked at the sky and muttered to herself. How dare they barge in during the conference? I'm afraid these dragons don't come with good intentions. The beauty was Yan Qianyun. She had left the Firmament Tower to attend the Divination Conference, but she did not expect to encounter the dragons. Dragons of the Barren State, what brings you to the Divination Conference of Ming State? The 2 green-robed old men in the lead had the demeanor of an immortal. They stepped on the air, and a rare wisp of sharpness flashed past their aged eyes. Divination masters were good at predicting the future and preparing for a rainy day. However, none of the top divination masters had predicted this. There must be something wrong. The leading red lotus flame dragon floated in the air. It was in a half-human form with a dragon head and a human body. Its dragon scales were like volcanoes, and it constantly emitted a scorching dragon breath. The red lotus flame dragon laughed mockingly. We want 100 divination masters. Of course, it would be better if they were female. As soon as he said that, all the divination masters stood up angrily. What do you mean by this? Ambitious dragons, if you want to cause trouble, Ming State is not afraid of you. There were many old monsters present. These guys obviously did not come with good intentions and did not intend to negotiate sincerely. Then it seems that we have nothing to talk about. A red-robed elder with a horn on his forehead slowly stepped out of the void. The pupils of all the powerful divination masters present suddenly shrank. In the world of the 9 regions, every vicious beast that could completely transform into a human form was basically a true old monster. They had lived from the ancient times until now. They did not expect the other party to send such an expert. But the problem was, no one knew why the Dragon Clan wanted so many fortune-tellers. Suddenly, a red lotus flame dragon's eyes lit up as it stared at Yan Qianyun. Father, haha, this woman is good. I want her. When the flaming dragon roared and laughed, the atmosphere of the whole place was on the verge of exploding. A war that was no less intense than the one in the far eastern region of the Divine Land had begun in Mingzhou, in the territory of the Han family in the far eastern region of the Divine Prefecture. High up in the sky, a few figures were moving back and forth, and a thunderous explosion was heard. Bang! Boom! The 6 old ancestors transformed into 6 streams of light and flashed over. Lin Chen was instantly blocked. 8 desolate finger. Mirror of attack. He tapped his fingertips repeatedly, and the 8-colored primordial energy fingers pierced through the air. His saber technique was like a fish dragon, and he slashed out the bright moon water mirror. 7 cold thorns. Plum blossom exhibition. Thunder tiger split. Burning heaven slash. The thunder tiger exploded, and the blazing saber aura crossed the sky. The sword aura shuttled back and forth like a flash of light, and the plum blossom sword aura opened up. Mirror of guard, moon of guard. The moonlight was bright, and saber shadows revolved around the mirror with the battle aura of water calamity revolving around it. When the attack was reflected, the bright moon split the sky. As the saber light flashed continuously, Lin Chen's bright moon mirror went all out. As Lin Chen fought, he had to protect Ning Qingxian, who was hugging his waist. But fortunately, Ning Qingxian did not panic at all. Lin Chen also protected her with the 3-inch calamity at all times. How magical! Why don't I feel any sense of danger? It's so peaceful. With her beautiful eyes tightly shut, Ning Qingxian could not help but hug him a little tighter. It was as if as long as she was by Lin Chen's side, she would feel an endless sense of security. No place in the world was safer than staying by his side. Not long after, when the even and gentle breathing was heard, Ning Qingxian actually fell asleep peacefully. In this fate of being dominated by the fake god, Ning Qingxian was rarely able to truly rest mentally after reaching the Heaven Dipper realm. It could be said that she had not truly rested for several years. Now that she was in the middle of a battle, and Lin Chen's opponents were the 6 peak experts of the 9 continents, she actually fell asleep peacefully in such a short period of time? At the same time, it could also be seen how much burden this young girl, who should have lost her life in her youth, had endured during this period of time. Have a good sleep. After you wake up, it will be the time for me to fulfill my promise to you. Lin Chen, who was retreating rapidly in the fierce battle, revealed a tender smile that bloomed in the fierce killing intent. Then, an even fiercer battle intent emerged. He suddenly slashed with his saber, and the charged penetration rune continued to activate. Lin Chen's combat strength was so strong that it shocked everyone. Fighting the 6 old ancestors alone? These were the 6 peak experts. To be able to fight with them at the same time and not be at a disadvantage, perhaps no one under the Saint Realm in the current 9 continents could do so. Boom! Bang! Bang! Wang Wuxuang and Lei Xiao, the 2 old ancestors, were pushed back by a saber strike. The crescent-like lightning swept across the sky, and the fist-like light seal of burning red flames struck furiously. Lin Chen suddenly slashed with his saber, and the mirror-like saber chi cut through the offensive. This was from the Grand Elders from the early and middle 9th Heaven Dipper realm. Obviously, they had also begun to join in the chaotic battle. Although this kind of offensive could not completely threaten Lin Chen, it could delay his offensive. For the 6 old ancestors' chi, the space cracked open, and the old palm stretched out like an eagle's claw. The 5 fingers flowed with rolling red flames that could burn mountains and boil seas, tearing at the back of Lin Chen's neck. He stepped into the distorted space and used the infinite silence step. His opponent's body was instantly trapped in the distorted space, and his attack paused, unable to succeed in the sneak attack. When Lin Chen shifted tens of thousands of miles away, old ancestor Qi Shao gritted his teeth and used all his strength to chase after him. Lin Chun immediately turned around and slashed with the mirror of attack, cutting off his opponent's palm and fingers, causing blood to spurt out. Dragon descends. Yunsong 10 absolutes. Vast and mighty sword rays slashed from all directions. The battle chi dragon crushed down from above, and the dragon broke through the clouds. Thousands of feet of golden light shone, converging into a battle chi giant. It fiercely waved its golden fist and violently punched at Lin Chen. The cone-shaped finger spun and stabbed violently, pointing at Lin Chen's right side. The battle chi flashed like lightning, turning into a thunder rock and pouncing forward. The Grand Elders from the early and middle Ninth Heaven Dipper realm cooperated with the old ancestors to block Lin Chen's retreat. The unprecedented attack shook the heavens and earth. It was as if the end of the world had arrived. The light dimmed, and the sky darkened. All the attacks were formed in an instant. 8 Desolation Finger. Bright attack. The 8-colored energy finger pointed rapidly, and the light of attack split open the sky. Then, the blade turned around, and the mirror of attack slashed out consecutively. Bang! 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 Rumble! The sky darkened. Lin Chen and his saber alone killed so many people in the Divine Prefecture's extreme east region. Even though his 2 fists were no match for 4 hands, his attacks did not weaken at all. Instead, they became more and more intense. His body was bathed in blood. The azure battle saber flashed and slashed continuously, like a bright moon rotating faintly. Lin Chen was like an Azura descending again, fighting against more than 10 Ninth Heaven Dipper realm combat emperors alone. The beauty in his arms was sleeping peacefully, without any injuries. She was like a red spider lily that bloomed from hell. At the same time, a beautiful figure in white who was hiding in the dark suddenly moved. She kidnapped Ning Qingxue and smashed 2 combat Emperor Elders with a single palm. At the Cloud Bridge, Ning Yuntian and the rest of the Ning family were still watching the fierce battle in the sky. Damn it, how long does this Lin Chen brat want to obstruct the Ning family? This kid dares to anger the gods. He's courting death. The 2 supreme elders of the Ning family couldn't help but curse. Only Ning Yuntian fell into an unprecedented silence. What kind of person was Ning Yuntian? The geniuses of his generation were all overshadowed by him. In terms of intelligence, potential, and strength, he was the top figure of his generation. It was precisely because of this that he could become the youngest patriarch in the history of the Ning family. But at this moment, Ning Yuntian had completely fallen into an incomparably solemn silence. It was terrifying to think about. It was really terrifying to think about. Thinking back to when the Ning family parted, Lin Chen was only a Yuan venerate. He dared to come to the Ning family and asked for Ning Qingxian. He had shown his talent for the first time and was more courageous than others. He even became the champion of the Heavenly Spirit list 4 times in a row. But at that time, Ning Yuntian still felt that there was a huge gap between him and the legendary True God families. But now, in just over a year, he had not only broken through from the 3rd-level Yuan Venerate to the Combat Emperor realm, but he was also a late-stage 4th-level Combat Emperor. In terms of cultivation, he was not inferior to him at all. In terms of combat power, he was far superior. That was the Combat Emperor realm, which could take hundreds of thousands of years to reach. But he had crossed it so easily. It was as if common sense did not apply to him at all. He was terrifyingly strong and heaven-defying. Not to mention that this kid had single-handedly fought against the upper echelons of the 6 true god families. In the history of the 9 provinces, he was the only one who could achieve such a feat. If they didn't see it with their own eyes, no one would believe it. He was only a young man in his early 20s. Was this something a young man could do? What if he was given another 10 years? No, 5 years. In 5 years' time, what kind of realm would he step into? It was unimaginable. Ning Yuntian didn't dare to continue thinking. The only thing he knew was that the upper echelons of the Ning family might have made an unprecedented wrong decision this time, and that was to stand on the opposite side of this kid. Chapter 651. It would be best if he dies here. If he doesn't die, the Ning family will have to live in his shadow. While Ning Yuntian was thinking about the future of the Ning family, the elders who were suppressing Ning Qingshuan's parents had a flash of fire in their eyes. They quietly took Ning Qingshuan's parents away without alerting Ning Yuntian and the others. Boom! The sky was torn apart. Lin Chen quickly retreated while activating his purple-golden pupils and squinting his eyes. If this goes on, I will be exhausted to death. Also, those guys are secretly preparing some kind of killing weapon. All the combat emperors below the 9th level will disappear. I have to risk my life to fight my way out. The attacks of more than 10 9th level combat emperors and the 6 old ancestors were too terrifying. If Lin Chen hadn't learned that infinite dark steps and the speed of his purple phoenix wings, he wouldn't have been able to withstand such a fierce attack with his previous speed. In addition, the Azure Bright Moon's saber chi caused the hidden injuries in his body to gradually expand. This was the second time Lin Chen used this saber, and he was still injured by it. Boom! At this moment, 6 different auras erupted like billions of volcanoes, shocking the entire easternmost region. The 6 majestic battle chi bodies were like the sun and the moon in the sky. They were either flowing with sword chi, slicing through the void, rolling with red flames, burning mountains and boiling seas, or thunderbolts. Countless thunderbolts were absorbed into their bodies like a world of thunder. The 6 old ancestors had used the saint physique bestowed upon them by the true God, just like the 1000-snake saint physique. Kid, the 6 of us have used the saint physique to deal with you at the same time. You can be considered as the strongest person in the 9 prefectures. Die. Old Ancestor Qi Shao sneered as his scorching battle chi spread in all directions like a sonic boom. The top experts who were watching the battle either had a solemn expression or were in disbelief. It's the legendary Saint Physique? No wonder Old Ancestor Qi Shao disappeared from the 9 prefectures and reappeared as Old Ancestor Qi Shao of the Hun family. It turns out that he was aiming for the Saint Physique. I was wondering why the ancient era's doom would suddenly create so many powerful true god families at night. So it's because of this. Those existences can actually create a sacred body. It seems like they have to think about it carefully. This is a unique opportunity. While the various experts were sighing in amazement, the emissaries from the sacred boundaries sects all curled their lips in disdain. What bullsh *t saintly being? It's nothing more than a body with a little bit of saint's aura and a trace of heaven and earth holy chi. Even the lowest prototype saintly being can't compare to 1 in 1,000 trash. He only has the strength of a First Tribulation War Emperor for a short period of time. First Tribulation Combat Emperor. This was the division of the sacred boundary. Above the late 9th level, one would need to go through 5 tribulations to qualify for the Sage Realm. The Saint Realm seized the good fortune of heaven and earth, went against the heavens and changed fate. They were infinitely close to the boundary between life and death, creating life and having the power to create civilization. In order to break through the late 9th layer combat Emperor realm, one had to absorb the Saint Chi of heaven and earth. After going through the 9 layers and 5 tribulations, one could break through and become a saint. Ever since the ancient 100 Saints' War, the land of the 9 prefectures had collapsed and lost countless territories. The heaven and earth holy chi was scarce and almost extinct. As a result, the land of the 9 prefectures hadn't produced a Saint Realm expert for such a long time. There wasn't even a first or second tribulation war emperor. Rumble. Hun Qishao, who had activated his saintly being, was covered in raging flames. He violently threw a punch. The fist wind was like millions of fiery dragons that spun across the sky. Lin Chen's expression changed. He spun the azure moon in his hand. The water tribulation battle chi flowed like a heavenly river and slashed open the mirror of defense. Bang! The mirror of defense was shattered. When the fist wind pushed Lin Chen back, he squinted his eyes. With a thought, he swept out a spirit wave that could destroy mountains and rivers. The spirit wave collided with the sword light that came slashing down. Lin Chen, who was in the void, took a few steps and turned into a distorted black vortex. His figure flashed rapidly and the azure moon swept out. The 6 old ancestors activated their saintly bodies and attacked, closing in on Bu Feng step by step. After activating the ultimate origin restoration ability again and again, his talent points were rapidly consumed. Blood flowed out from the corner of Lin Chen's mouth. He clenched his teeth and endured. There are about 10 minutes left before I can use super-dimensional teleportation again, based on my previous state. Based on my previous state, I can only maintain my vitality for less than 9 minutes. I have to kill the target in the 7th minute. Just as he made up his mind, Lin Chen swung his blade and retreated. He then connected to the system. His pupils that were revolving with purple-gold radiance suddenly flashed with a trace of madness. System, activate the absolute life and death innate skill. Target locked. Lin Chen directly chose an early 9th level combat emperor as his target. He was a supreme elder of the Wang family and the easiest one to kill among the 9th level combat emperors present. Although he didn't activate the combination innate skill, the cooldown of the absolute life and death innate skill had passed. Lin Chen could activate it again. Target selected successfully. 700,000 talent points have been consumed. Absolute life and death innate skill activated. Cooldown 15 days. According to the calculation of the host's current strength, activating absolute life and death will increase your overall strength by 100 times. Every 30 seconds, your overall strength will increase by 18 times. The base increase will still be calculated based on the host's basic combat strength. It can be added together with the God Slayer innate skill. The early 9th level combat emperor, who was targeted by Lin Chen as the target of absolute life and death, felt his heart skip a beat. It was as if he had fallen into an ice cellar. This brat has targeted me? I don't think so. Chi. The air exploded. Lin Chen's body was flowing with an orange brilliance. He held Ning Qingxian tightly with one hand and didn't let go. His pure strength was close to 39 million and his battle chi was close to the peak of early 9th level. This was the second time Lin Chen activated absolute life and death. Unlike the previous time, he had a certain understanding of this innate skill. 6 minutes to decide the winner. 2 minutes to kill the target. Lin Chen's eyes flashed with a burning battle intent. His blade was like a dragon, dancing through the sky. Moon of speed. The light of heaven and earth turned into a bright moon and flashed. The blade deflected the endless lightning. Old ancestor Lei Zhao's thunder physique dimmed. He couldn't help but be shocked. This brat's strength can still be improved? How many trump cards does he actually have? The 6 old ancestors formed a circle, and the space within 1,000,000 miles collapsed. Lin Chen's steps were swift and graceful, and he dodged continuously. His steps were like a dark vortex, and the azure moon slashed out again and again. Chi. Boom. The arrow pierced through the air like a meteor and fell beside Lin Chen, almost disrupting his battle rhythm. Even in the current situation, the other 9 great elders of the fake god families didn't plan to give Lin Chen any chance. They wanted to cooperate with the 6 old ancestors who were using the saint physique to suppress him. Even with the God Slayer innate skill and absolute life and death, Lin Chen was still barely able to deal with the top combat power of the 6 fake god clans. This was because in the entire world of the 9 prefectures, this was a combat power that could rival any prefecture. It was the same as Lin Chun challenging the entire continent's combat power by himself. Countless reclusive old monsters of the older generation were dumbfounded. They asked themselves honestly, if they were to face such a lineup personally, they wouldn't be able to last more than 10 rounds. Not to mention, Lin Chun could last for so long. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.